Chapter 321. In the Misty Chi City's City Lord's mansion, City Lord Sun Gang was reading a piece of information carefully. A person was standing behind him with 6 large chests beside them. After a while, Sun Gang put down the report and smiled. This Lu Xingji is quite capable and bold. He's quite interesting. Standing behind him was the commander of the Misty Chi City's city guards, Su Ji. Both of them were at the Spirit Aperture Realm. Since the West Desolate Province was at the border, the weakest person who could hold the position of City Lord and Commander of the City Guards was at the Spirit Aperture Realm. Su Ji said in a deep voice, "City Lord, it's fine that Lu Xingji eradicated his dissidents. After all, it's an internal matter of the Dark Thunder Guards. However, he executed the entire Jiang clan in public, which has already made everyone in Misty Chi City anxious. It's indeed a bit too much. Also, he actually dared to let the other major clans, other than the Du clan, smuggle in public. He's simply audacious." Sun Gang looked deeply at Su Ji and said, "Su Ji, you have to know that our City Lord Residence's responsibility is to ensure the stability of Misty Chi City. We don't have to care about anything else. Even if the major clans smuggle in public, it's the Dark Thunder Guards who are in charge. If this matter is exposed, the Great Supervisor will naturally deal with Lu Xingji. We don't have to interfere. Moreover, you've seen the report on Lu Xingji. You think he's reckless and audacious, but I dare to bet that the North Region's Great Supervisor Duan Chun won't find trouble with him. Not only did a mid-stage Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator quickly secure his position as a supervisor, he even used his authority to make a fortune. Even the higher-ups will turn a blind eye to it. How can such a person be a fish in a pond?" The more Su Ji listened, the more annoyed he felt. He knew what Sun Gang said, but there was an indescribable feeling in his heart that made him unusually depressed. However, Sun Gang could see through Su Ji's thoughts. He was jealous. As a supervisor, Long Shichi's position was half a level higher than Su Ji's, but his cultivation was far inferior to Su Ji's. That was fine. Su Ji was conscientious in managing the city guards and had never made any mistakes. However, he could only receive a fixed monthly salary. What about Long Shichi? They had only been in Misty City for a few days, but they had already plundered a large amount of resources. As the saying goes, there is no harm if there is no comparison. Su Ji was really a little jealous. However, Sun Gang didn't expose him. He said, "What I'm curious about is, how will he deal with the Du family?" Back then, it was the Jiang family and the Du family who had joined forces to pressure Lu Xingji. Now that the Jiang family had been annihilated, the rest of the families had already sided with Lu Xingji. What would he do with the Du family? Du Hachang must be very anxious as well. That's right, Du Hachang was very anxious. It could even be described as fear and terror. At this time, he was galloping on his horse. His horse was not an ordinary horse, but a specially bred spirit horse. In a sense, the spirit horse could also be reluctantly called a demonic beast that was not ranked. It could travel hundreds of miles in a day. Of course, it was very rare and could be counted with one's fingers in the entire Misty Chi City. Du Hachang hurried on his way. His heart was filled with worry and fear. It was too fast. Long Shichi took down the major families too quickly. It was so fast that it was beyond his imagination. It was so fast that he was afraid. In just 3 days, the original 9 superclans had become 7 superclans. Now, the remaining 6 family heads had already sided with Lu Xingji and had even made a fortune because of it. His Du family had become a loner. If this went on, Long Shichi wouldn't even need to do anything. Just the 6 major families would slowly crush the Du family. Now that the Du family was relying on themselves, they would follow in the footsteps of the Jiang family sooner or later. Thus, he needed to seek help. And the person he sought help from was the third-rate sect, Profound Yang sect. Profound Yang sect was located on Profound Yang Mountain, more than 200 miles away from Misty Chi City. Du Hachang rode on his spirit horse and could reach it in less than a day. At night, Du Hachang could already see Profound Yang Mountain. His heart also calmed down a little. However, What he didn't know was that in the forest that he had just passed, someone was hiding and watching him. This person was naturally Long Shiqi. During the day, after he activated his fate skill, he saw Du Hachong galloping on his horse. The reason why Long Shiqi chose to attack the Jiang family today was because Jiang Xin had beaten up Wei Guan. This was a loss of face for the Dark Lightning Guards, which was also a loss of face for Long Shiqi. Secondly, the Jiang family obviously didn't betray the country, but the Du family was really suspicious. However, the Dark Lightning Guards hadn't found any conclusive evidence yet. Thus, Long Shiqi wanted to lure the snake out of its hole. He deliberately chose to destroy the Jiang family to intimidate the other families. At the same time, he wanted to make Du Hachong panic. Once he panicked, he would naturally seek help. Whoever he looked for would be the biggest suspect. As long as he followed this trail, he might really be able to catch a big fish. Long Shiqi saw the direction that Du Hachong went and determined that he was most likely going to Profound Yang sect. Thus, he directly teleported to the vicinity of Profound Yang Mountain. At this moment, Du Hachong really appeared here. Long Shiqi thought to himself. This time, after activating his fate skill, he came out a bit suddenly. However, in the Dark Lightning manner, no one would go to his room in a short period of time. He decided to wait until tomorrow to teleport back. Right now, he was preparing to sneak into Profound Yang sect to investigate. When Du Hachong hurriedly entered Profound Yang sect, he didn't know that there was a tail following behind him. Profound Yang sect master, Li Xianyang, was a gray-haired old man. However, his cultivation was actually at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. When he found out that Du Hachong wanted to see him in the middle of the night, he was a bit surprised. When he saw the travel-worn and anxious Du Hachong, he knew that something bad was going to happen. When Du Hachong saw Li Xianyang, he immediately went over and said, "Sect Master Li, something bad has happened." Li Xianyang sat down and said, "Speak slowly." Du Hachong said, "Sect Master Li, that matter can't continue. Not to mention that matter, even my Du family can't protect itself now." Li Xianyang frowned. What happened in Misty Cheese City? Following that, Du Hachong told him about what Long Shiqi did. Li Xianyang exclaimed in surprise. This Lu Xingji actually has such methods. Actually, there was something he didn't say in his heart, and that was that Du Hachong was too useless. That's right. Originally, Sect Master Li wanted me to work with the other 8 great clans to provide Zhu Lugua with the fine iron to make arrows. Actually, everything was going quite smoothly. However, ever since that Lu Xingji came, he turned Misty Cheese City upside down. Now, my Du family is the enemy of everyone in Misty Cheese City. We could be overthrown at any time. Sect Master Li, please help this Du. Li Xianyang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Humph, he's just a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Since he doesn't know what's good for him, then let's change the supervisor. The previous supervisor, Xiaoyu, will end up like Lu Xingji. Chapter 322. Long Shiqi, who had heard all of this, was secretly shocked. He had only come to investigate who the Du family was colluding with, but it ended up implicating the previous supervisor, Xiaoyu's death, and the Du family and the Profound Yang sect were actually in cahoots with the Zhu Lu country. The Zhu Lu country was the weakest country among the 6 countries of the Western region. Its area was not even as big as the Western Desolate Province. Through the Profound Yang sect and the Du family, they smuggled large amounts of fine iron from the Thunderfire dynasty to forge arrows. What do they need arrows for? Of course, it was to fight. Now, it seemed that this small country was actually hiding quite a big ambition. Long Shiqi thought to himself, this trip could be considered a coincidence. Not only did he find out the cause of Xiaoyu's death, he also found out that the Du family and the Profound Yang sect were secretly colluding with the Zhu Lu country. However, it was useless, because he had no evidence. The Profound Yang sect was not a small Jiang family that he could destroy as he wished. If he could have conclusive evidence, it would be a great contribution. However, Lung Shiqi heard the meaning behind Li Xuanyang's words. They seemed to want to make a move on him. Lung Shiqi concealed his aura and continued to listen. Li Xuanyang said, "Take a short rest and rush back immediately. Don't alert anyone. Then think of a way to lure Lu Xingji out of the Misty Chi City. As for the rest, this Du understands, but..." Du Hachong was a little hesitant. "But what?" Du Hachong said, "It's just that the storm of Sha Yu's death is not over yet. Although the Misty Chi City did not send the Dark Thunder Guards to investigate, the North Region's supervisor, Duan Chun, has been secretly investigating this matter. If we kill Lu Xingji now, will we be exposed?" Li Xuanyang stroked his beard and said, "You've thought it through quite thoroughly. But don't worry, I'm not going to kill Lu Xingji this time. With his insignificant cultivation, if I wanted to kill him, would I need you to lure him out? Coincidentally, the Zhu Lu country's people gave me a strange goo poison that can control people's hearts. It's just right to use it on Lu Xingji, a Spirit Pulse Realm supervisor. At that time, we will have a Dark Thunder Guard supervisor in our hands. It will be more convenient for us to do things in the future." Du Hachong was bewildered. There's actually such a miraculous item in this world. If that's the case, we can control the Dark Thunder Guards in Mist City without being targeted by Duan Chun. This is killing several birds with one stone. All right, you should hurry back to avoid being noticed. I'll do it right away. Soon after, Du Hachong hurriedly left the profound Sun Mountain. However, Lung Shiqi did not leave. He listened to Li Xuanyang and Du Hachong's plan and was glad that he had made the trip. Otherwise, with his character, he might really be lured out of the city by Du Hachong. The consequences would be unimaginable. However, since he already knew, the initiative was in his hands. The reason he didn't leave was because he felt that Li Xuanyang was hiding something from Du Hachong. He wanted to find out what Li Xuanyang was planning. Moreover, he couldn't rush back to Mist City. He could only wait for fate's cool down to be over and teleport back. After Du Hachong left, a person walked in. He was the Grand Elder of Profound Sun Sect, Li Feizhou, a Spirit Aperture Realm Middle Stage cultivator. Profound Sun Sect was founded by Li Xuanyang and Li Feizhou, two Spirit Aperture Realm experts. Li Feizhou said in a deep voice, "Senior brother, you're sinking deeper and deeper." Li Xuanyang didn't look at him and said indifferently, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sigh, senior brother, you and I are already so old. Why can't you see past it?" "See past it? You're the one who can't see past it." Li Xuanyang's voice suddenly became louder. "You know that we're already so old, but among our disciples, which one has the hope of breaking through to the Spirit Aperture Realm? When we're all dead, do you think Profound Sun Sect will still exist without a Spirit Aperture Realm expert to hold the fort?" Li Feizhou shook his head. "It's fate. Profound Sun Sect's fate may only allow it to exist for a few decades." Li Xuanyang said angrily, "What fate? I don't believe in fate. As long as I can help Zhu Lugua collect the refined iron, they will give me the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal. With it, I can break through to the Gang Spirit Realm. Gang Spirit Realm. At that time, I will not only prolong my life, but also lead Profound Sun Sect to become a second-rate sect." Li Feizhou saw Li Xuanyang's crazy expression and couldn't help but sigh. "Senior brother, you know better than anyone whether you're doing this for Profound Sun Sect or for yourself. Whether it's to collect refined iron for Zhu Lugua or to kill the previous supervisor, Sha Yu. This crystal is enough to destroy Profound Sun Sect. Do you really think the Dark Thunder Guards of Western Wilderness Prefecture are mediocre? I'm afraid they've already noticed it, but they're not 100% sure. Once the Dark Thunder Guards find evidence, Profound Sun Sect will be destroyed. What's more, the Discipline Commission is watching us covetously. Senior brother, what you're doing is pushing us to the edge of a cliff. A little carelessness and we'll fall into the abyss. Listen to my advice and stop." "Stop?" Li Xuanyang laughed. "Haha, Feizhou, you're still so naive. From the moment I helped Zhu Lugua transport refined iron, we had no way out. For the sake of our many years of friendship, as long as you don't stop me, you'll still be the first elder of Profound Sun Sect, and I won't pursue the matter of you practicing demonic arts. But if you're stubborn, don't blame me for being cruel." Li Xianyang flicked his sleeves and left. Li Feizhou sighed deeply and also walked away, but his figure looked a little stooped. Lung Shiqi, who was hiding underground, understood everything after hearing all this. Zhu Luga needed refined iron that could only be produced in the Thunder Flame dynasty, and Li Xianyang needed rare materials to break through to Gang's spirit realm. So they hit it off. Although the Profound Yang sect was a third-rate sect, it was still a proper sect for spirit cultivators. There were many families that wanted to curry favor with the Profound Yang sect. In Lung Shiqi's opinion, there should be a lot of people like Du Hechang, who were scattered in the big and small cities around Profound Sun sect, collecting refined iron for Profound Sun sect. At this moment, Lung Shiqi quietly sneaked out of the Profound Sun Mountain. He knew that a huge contribution was placed in front of him. However, if he wanted to take all of this contribution, he would have to carefully arrange everything. First of all, Du Hechang could be used, and he could also ask his Dark Thunder Guard to check if there were people smuggling refined iron in other cities. The more people he managed to dig out, the greater the credit he would get. In addition, he had to find a way to overthrow Profound Sun Sect. As long as he could prove that Profound Sun Sect colluded with Zhu Lugua, he would not only have a great merit, but also get an unimaginable amount of resources. But it was impossible for him to do this alone. Li Xianyang alone could kill him with 2 slaps, not to mention other things. So this matter had to be planned carefully. Lung Shiqi thought to himself, the most important thing now is to prove Du Hechang's crime, then use him as a springboard to find evidence of Profound Sun Sect. Du Hechang is easy to deal with, but to deal with Li Xianyang, I have to borrow the strength of others. Lung Shiqi thought for a while. He had 3 choices. First, he could report this matter and let the supervisor Duan Chun deal with it. The Dark Thunder Guards of the North region were more than enough to deal with Profound Sun Sect. But if he did that, all the merit would go to Duan Chun. At most, he would get the supervisor credit and get the leftovers. Second, he could join forces with the Misty Chi City's City Lord Manor. The City Lord Manor also had 2 Spirit Aperture Realm experts and hundreds of city guards, so he did not need to fear Profound Sun Sect. But he had not interacted with the City Lord Manor's people before, so he did not know their depth. There was no trust between the 2 sides. Third, he could mobilize the people of Blood Row Pavilion. He had the silver-marked Bloodkill order, so he could mobilize a large number of assassins in the West Desolate Province. He could even directly destroy Profound Sun Sect. But if he did that, it would be difficult to explain the origin of the experts of Blood Row Pavilion, and it would be very easy to be exposed. If he was found out, then all his efforts would be in vain. Just as Lung Shiqi was hesitating, his illusion world trembled slightly. Chapter 323. Suddenly, Lung Shiqi felt the illusion world tremble slightly, and then a lazy voice sounded, "Lung Shiqi, quickly release my main body." When Lung Shiqi heard this voice, he knew that Nine Leave had woken up. Fortunately, he had already left Profound Sun Mountain. He quickly sank into the ground and opened up a space to release Nine Leave's main body. Immediately, a green light drilled out from between Lung Shiqi's eyebrows. It was Nine Leave's soul body. Lung Shiqi keenly observed that Nine Leave's soul body was obviously much stronger than before. After Nine Leave's soul and fleshly body fused into one, her fleshly body immediately released traces of purple light. Now, Nine Leave's main body was already the size of a millstone, and it was still growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only was her body growing, but her aura was also growing. It wasn't until Nine Leave grew several times that it stopped, and her aura was clearly that of a rank 4 monster. Lung Shiqi was secretly shocked. Recently, Nine Leave had been sleeping for a long time, but she didn't do anything. After waking up, she directly advanced, which made Lung Shiqi a little envious. Nine Leave spun around twice and said, "In The recovery of the body is not bad. Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows slightly. Although Nine Leaf only said this short sentence, he still felt that Nine Leaf's tone and attitude seemed to have changed. He remembered that when he was still in the demonic Miasma mountain range, Nine Leaf had been demoted from a rank 7 great demon to a rank 2 little demonic beast. All day long, she looked like she had a deep grudge. She even asked Lung Shiqi to address her as an equal. Later, she became a rank 3 monster and was very curious about the outside world. It seemed that she had the mentality of a little girl. Now, Lung Shiqi dared to feel that Nine Leaf's tone was a little cold. Lung Shiqi decided to test it out. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior, congratulations on recovering your rank 4 cultivation. It's just around the corner." Nine Leaves said, "I've only recovered a little. It's just a little bit. There's still a long way to go before my cultivation recovers. Your cultivation has also improved very quickly. Where are we now?" Lung Shiqi grasped an important point from Nine Leaves' words, which was that Nine Leaf felt that he already had the foundation to establish himself. She was now a 4th rank monster beast, which was equivalent to a spirit aperture realm expert. However, with her strength, she could even fight with those in the gang spirit realm, so she did have the confidence. But this is not good for Lung Shiqi. This was because the difference in their strength was too great. Although the two of them had an equal blood contract, the difference in their strength still put them in different positions. Perhaps this was the reason for Nine Leaves' change in attitude. The demon race was just that straightforward. Lung Shiqi briefly explained what happened in the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Of course, he did not mention anything about the Blood Seed Project. Nine Leaves said, "You ran from Donglin County to Mukin County and then to the Western Desolate County. In just a few months, you've traversed the entire Thunderblaze dynasty. It's a pity that there's still something good in Extreme Fire Manor. With my current cultivation, I can get it, but it's too far away." Lung Shiqi did not expect that Nine Leaf was still thinking about the things in Extreme Fire Manor. However, it was precisely because Nine Leaf swallowed a large amount of resources in Extreme Fire Manor that he quickly recovered to the 4th rank. Nine Leaf continued, "Since we've come to the Western Wilderness Prefecture and are still close to the 6 countries of the Western region, there must be a lot of good things here. You continue to be the supervisor. I'll go out for a walk." Speaking of this, Nine Leaf planned to leave directly, but Lung Shiqi stopped him. "Senior, please wait. I actually have a request." Nine Leaf smiled humanly and said, "Humph, I knew something was up from your expression just now. You can tell me, but how much effort do you want from me? You have to pay the corresponding price." Lung Shiqi had known this would happen. Fortunately, he now had the support of the Dark Thunder Manor and the 6 families, which should be enough for Nine Leaf. Thus, he told Nine Leaf about Li Xianyang and Du Hechang teaming up to attack him. Nine Leaf said, "There really is such a parasite that can control people's hearts. However, I'm guessing that this thing should have a huge flaw." "Interesting. Do you want me to kill Li Xianyang?" "Easy." Lung Shiqi was shocked. Li Xianyang was a late-stage spirit aperture realm expert, but in Nine Leaf's mouth, he was like a fish on a chopping board. However, Li Xianyang could not die yet, so he said, "Li Xianyang is going to die, but before he dies, there's something I want to do." Junior plans to. Nine Leaf's eyes lit up when he heard Lung Shiqi's words. "Lung Shiqi, you're quite thoughtful. I can do what you said, but you have to pay the corresponding price." Lung Shiqi said, "Senior Nine Leaf, what do you need?" "There's no Yao core here, so I need a large amount of heavenly treasures. The worst has to be rank 4. Lung Shiqi said without hesitation. "After Junior destroys the Du family, all of the Du family's resources will belong to Senior." Nine Leaf tilted his head. "Brat, you're getting more and more adept at making empty promises. Junior doesn't dare. Forget it. My strength has increased greatly, so I'm in a good mood, so I won't bicker with you. Moreover, I can give you a piece of information for free." Information? Lung Shiqi felt it was strange. Nine Leaf had been asleep all this time, so what information could she have? Of course, he still said, Junior would like to hear the details. Nine Leaf's voice became serious. "After I woke up, my soul recovered to the level of a rank for Yao Beast. It shook your spiritual space. You should have felt it. Lung Shichi nodded. But at the moment when it shook, I faintly sensed another aura in your spiritual space. What? Lung Shichi was shocked. He knew what 9 leave meant. In other words, other than 9 leave, there were other things hidden in his spiritual space. But what could it be? 9 leave continued. I can also tell you that other than me, there are 2 other auras in your spiritual space. Your spiritual space has undergone a mutation, and the heavenly Yao soul crystal has merged into your spiritual space. And I'm a soul-leaving scorpion, so I'm very sensitive to soul auras. Moreover, I've used the heavenly Yao soul crystal to cultivate for hundreds of years, so I definitely can't be wrong. 2. Lung Shichi was no longer surprised, but his heart sank, and he frowned. Senior, what are the characteristics of those 2 auras? I only sensed it for a moment. One of them gave me a dreamlike feeling. The other one is very strange. It seems to be between a living thing and a dead thing. This aura is hidden very deeply, almost to the depths of your soul. Lung Shichi's face became more and more ugly. He was secretly guessing what those 2 auras were. Mo Ling, 9 leave, and Meng Tianzong had entered his spiritual space before. According to 9 leave, that dreamlike aura should be Meng Tianzong. He remembered that in the different space of the Divine Dream Illusion Palace, when Meng Tianzong woke up, everyone's memories had been tampered with. However, he absorbed a 7-colored light and instantly opened 9 spirit veins. He thought to himself, it must be at that time that Meng Tianzong did something to me. He didn't kill us, so he has other plans. But what is the other aura? The other one shouldn't be Mo Ling was already killed by me. Even if he wasn't completely killed, he should have released demonic energy. Between a living thing and a dead thing, hidden in the depths of my soul? Suddenly, Lung Shichi's mind flashed. His body trembled, and 2 words appeared in his mind: system. Chapter 324. Lung Shichi felt that if he guessed correctly, the other aura should be the system. The system was obviously not a product of this world. According to the language of his previous world, the system should be called artificial intelligence. That was why 9 leave said that its aura was between a living thing and an inanimate object. Lung Shichi's soul had crossed over. Since he could open the system, it meant that the system was indeed hidden in the depths of his soul. In addition to the system, there was also Meng Tianzong in his spiritual fantasy world. Lung Shichi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that if he went to the spiritual fantasy world, he would be able to gather a table of mahjong. Let's talk about Meng Tianzong first. He was an absolutely ruthless person who killed tens of thousands of disciples. Such a person hid an aura in his spiritual fantasy world. This must be Meng Tianzong's method, but Lung Shichi couldn't do anything about it. Other than being careful, there was really no other way. Even 9 leave could only feel a trace of Meng Tianzong's aura when he broke through. This meant that Meng Tianzong was far more powerful than 9 leave. Even 9 leave couldn't help with this matter. Compared to Meng Tianzong, Lung Shichi cared more about the system. When it came to decorum, Lung Shichi really loved and hated it. If it weren't for the system, he might have died on Blood Mist Island. How could he be where he was today? However, he had seen too many systems in his previous life. Many of the system's bound hosts had become the system's puppets, which made him wary of the system at all times. This was like Lin Ying in Shi City. Lin Ying's ring hid an evil old man. If Lung Shichi didn't kill Lin Ying, Lin Ying might suddenly rise up and become one of the peerless geniuses of Donglin County. He'd get a lot from the evil old man, but the result was that he would probably become a tool for the evil old man's rebirth. Lin Ying's relationship with the evil old man was similar to Lung Shichi's relationship with the system. Lung Shichi didn't want to become a puppet, so he had been working hard to fuse spiritual techniques and techniques. He wanted to use this method to get rid of the system's shackles. Even if he were to lose his system one day, he would still have a way to survive. More importantly, if even 9 leave could sense the system, it meant that the system was most likely in the process of awakening. What would he do when the system awoke in the future? Lung Shiqi didn't know. Suddenly, he felt very confused. He just wanted to settle down in this world and live freely. However, all sorts of inexplicable things swarmed over. Whether it was Mo Ling, Nine Leave, or Meng Tianzong, they were all existences that he couldn't afford to offend. However, it seemed that they were all coveting something from him. Perhaps it was talent? Perhaps it was the future. The more Lung Shiqi thought about it, the more confused he became. Even his head started to hurt. Seeing his pained expression, Nine Leaves said, "You don't have to be so distressed. It's still unknown whether this is a blessing or a curse for you. If you can devour those two auras, the benefits will be beyond your imagination. Of course, the premise is that you have enough strength." Devour? Strength. Nine Leaves' words made Lung Shiqi instantly sober up, as if he had been enlightened. That's right. No matter how distressed he was, he couldn't solve the problem. It was better to increase his strength as much as possible. With strength, he would have the capital to face Meng Tianzong and the system. Just as Nine Leaves said, he could even devour Meng Tianzong and the system. Lung Shiqi closed and opened his eyes. His entire person did not change at all, but there was an additional aura around him that said that he would remain unmoved no matter what happened. In his mind, his will to pursue strength became even more firm. Nine Leaf thought to himself, "Two people actually came in without me noticing. There are quite a few people who have their eyes on this kid. However, since I found out, don't blame me for what happens next." Lung Shiqi took a deep breath and collected all his thoughts. Then, he adjusted his breathing on the spot and waited until the cooldown of the fate skill was over before he directly teleported back to his room. Lung Shiqi didn't hide this from Nine Leave because he couldn't hide it even if he wanted to, unless he had to walk more than 100 kilometers back to Lanqi City by himself. He arrived in Lanqi City in an instant. Nine Leave exclaimed, "Teleportation? No. When did you have such an ability? Even a powerhouse in the divine origin realm can't do that." Lung Shiqi explained, "This is the power I obtained from the aura hidden in the depths of my soul. However, there are also many restrictions." "I see," Nine Leaves said indifferently, but her tone was a little meaningful. Lung Shiqi returned to his room. He first carefully checked the door and found that there were no traces of it being moved. This meant that no one had entered his room during the day he was gone. However, he wasn't sure if anyone had come to look for him. Then, as usual, Nine Leaves' soul body entered Lung Shiqi's spiritual fantasy realm while her body was stored in the system space. Lung Shiqi sorted out his thoughts and decided to start his plan. He shouted, "Men!" Someone immediately pushed the door open and came in. It was Wei Guan. He bowed and said, "Sir." Lung Shiqi looked at Wei Guan's expression and didn't find anything unusual. It seemed that he hadn't left during this time. "Go and inform the 3 Dark Lightning envoys to meet me in the meeting hall in 15 minutes. Yes. 15 minutes later, Lung Shiqi and the other 3 gathered in the meeting hall. Lung Shiqi sat on a jade chair and said, "Today, I have 2 things to tell you. First, you must keep a close eye on the Du family. If there's any movement, you must inform me immediately. Second, spread the news and tell all the Dark Lightning envoys to pay attention to the surrounding cities for people smuggling refined iron." Xiao Qian and the other 2 knew that Lung Shiqi was preparing to make a move on the Du family. They said simultaneously, "This humble one obeys." Just as they were about to leave, someone reported, "Sir, Commander Su Ji of Lanqi City's city guards requests an audience." "Su Ji wants to see me?" Lung Shiqi was also a bit surprised. He had never met this Su Ji before and had no interactions with him. What did he want? But since he came, he obviously couldn't refuse him. "Invite him in." Qiu Cheng rolled his eyes and said, "Sir, this Su Ji is at the early stage of the spirit aperture realm. He's a bit stingy. I'm afraid he didn't come here for anything good." Lung Shiqi nodded slightly. Not long after, a tall and sturdy middle-aged man with a square face and silver armor walked in. Lung Shiqi cupped his fists and said, "Commander Su, I've heard a lot about you. Please sit. Su Ji said, Sir Lu is too polite. He sat down without any trace of politeness and said, the three of you can leave. As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Cheng and the others frowned, and they said in their hearts, isn't this Su Ji a bit too arrogant? Lung Shiqi chuckled. Chapter 325. Su Ji's actions made Lung Shiqi look bad. This was Dark Thunder Manor. What was the meaning of him, the commander of the city guards, coming here and pointing fingers at the Dark Thunder envoy in front of Lung Shiqi? In fact, Su Ji was also testing Lung Shiqi. He wanted to see how Lung Shiqi would react. Would he silently endure it, or would he lose his temper? But Su Ji never thought that Lung Shiqi would actually laugh. In terms of cultivation, Su Ji was naturally one realm higher than Lung Shiqi. But in terms of status, Lung Shiqi was the supervisor of several cities, while Su Ji was only the commander of Lanqi City's city guards. Speaking of which, Lung Shiqi could be considered half of Su Ji's superior, but they weren't in the same system. Su Ji humiliated Lung Shiqi in front of everyone, yet he still laughed. Su Ji couldn't figure out Lung Shiqi's thoughts. Lung Shiqi chuckled. Didn't you three hear? Commander Su asked you to leave. All right, if you have time, you could take a look around the city guards. At this point, Lung Shiqi glanced at Su Ji. Who knows, there might be people in the city guards who break the law. Su Ji's expression became unnatural. He knew that Lung Shiqi was using his authority to suppress him. But the Dark Thunder envoy did have the right to supervise the city guards. Xiao Qian and the others really did leave, looking like they were going to carry out their orders. This time, Su Ji was a little embarrassed. He originally wanted to test Lung Shiqi, but in the end, he embarrassed himself. He couldn't help but feel a little angry in his heart. He coughed dryly. I did come here to discuss something important. It's best if you and I know each other. Lung Shiqi was also secretly guessing Su Ji's thoughts, but he couldn't figure out what Su Ji wanted to do. He said, Commander Su, if you have something to say, just say it. Su Ji clapped his hands and said, all right, Lord Lu is straightforward. There's no one else here either, so this Su will say it directly. I've heard that Lord Lu is secretly supporting a few big families to do some small business. I don't know if this is true or not. Lung Shiqi obviously knew what this small business meant, but he immediately pulled a long face and said with some anger in his voice, this is pure nonsense. Where did great Commander Su hear this news? Humph, I don't know which rascal dares to slander the Dark Thunder Guards. I'm afraid he's tired of living. At the same time, Lung Shiqi also understood that Su Ji wanted to interfere. Su Ji saw that Lung Shiqi refused to admit it and sneered in his heart. He said, Lu Darren, if you don't want people to know, don't do it. Moreover, as long as something like this was done, it was impossible not to leave traces behind. At that time, if it were to accidentally reach the ears of the great supervisor, Lord Duan Chun, I'm afraid it would be difficult for Lord Lu to clean up the mess. Lung Shiqi's face darkened. Commander Su, are you threatening me? Su Ji shook his head and said, no, this Su is here to help Lord Lu. Oh, how is Commander Su going to help me? Lung Shiqi also wanted to know how Su Ji was going to help. Su Ji said, those families are involved in smuggling. Even if they have Lord Lu's secret support, it is inevitable that they will be exposed. However, if we add the cover of the city guards, then it will be foolproof. Lung Shiqi was silent for a moment, then nodded. Commander Su is right. Then what does Commander Su want? Su Ji raised a finger. I heard that Lord Lu wants the families to hand over 30% of the offerings every month. This Su wants 10% of that. 10%. Su Ji wanted to take a third of it. Lung Shiqi's heart gradually rose with cold, killing intent. But he nodded and said, I can promise you. When Su Ji heard this, he was stunned at first. He didn't expect Lung Shiqi to agree so easily. Lung Shiqi changed the topic. However, I also have a condition. Su Ji felt that this was normal. Lord Lu, please say it. I need Commander Su to help me destroy the Du family. Du family? Su Ji's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. Since Lord Lu can destroy the Jiang family, it shouldn't be difficult to destroy the Du family. Lung Shiqi shook his head. Commander Su may not know, but according to my subordinates, there are other hidden experts in the Du family. If I act rashly, even if I can destroy the Du family, I will suffer heavy losses. Commander Su should know that it is not easy for us to train a qualified Dark Thunder Guard. Suji knew that Lung Shiqi's words were true. Every Dark Thunder Guard was strictly selected and trained. They were indeed elites and couldn't be lost. As long as Commander Su agrees to this, I will give you 10% of the offerings. Suji felt that even if the Du family had hidden experts, no matter how strong they would only be in the Spirit Pulse realm. In front of his Spirit Aperture realm cultivation, they were nothing. He only hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Lung Shiqi clapped his hands and said, "Good. My subordinates have been secretly watching the Du family's every move. After a while, when I find a suitable opportunity, I will immediately send someone to inform Commander Su. However, Commander Su shouldn't reveal himself so easily. When the time comes, we will still need to disguise ourselves. As long as we destroy the Du family, you and I can silently make a fortune." At first, Suji felt that it was a bit troublesome. In his opinion, directly destroying the Du family would be enough. However, Lung Shiqi was right. His identity as the commander of the city guards was very sensitive and couldn't be casually exposed. In that case, I will wait for Lord Lu's good news, Suji said as he stood up. It seemed that he had the intention to leave. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Lung Shiqi took out a token and said, "This is a token. If there is any news, I will send someone with this token to inform Commander Su." "That is good. I will take my leave. I will see Commander Su out." After Lung Shiqi sent Suji out the door, he looked at his departing figure with a strange look in his eyes. It was the look of someone looking at a dead man. 3 days later, Lung Shiqi received a report from his subordinates. It said that Du Hechang had secretly left the city with 2 trusted aides. The head of the family had secretly left the city? There must be something fishy. Lung Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Du Hechang was deliberately luring him out. If he hadn't heard the conversation between Li Xianyang and Du Hechang, he would definitely have thought that there was something fishy and secretly followed them. He sneered. "You are luring the snake out of its hole. Aren't I doing the same?" Someone called Peng Yuan over. Not long after, Peng Yuan arrived. Lung Shiqi handed him a token and a small package. "Thousand Face, give these things to Suji. Remember, you must not let anyone know." Thousand Face smiled. "Don't worry, Lord. This subordinate is the best at this." Lung Shiqi's fingers kept tapping on the jade chair. He went through the plan in his mind from beginning to end. After making sure that he didn't miss anything, he put on a disguise and quietly left the city. The plan began. Chapter 326. In a small forest a dozen miles away from Misty City, 2 sneaky figures met. "Lord Lu, I don't think there's a need to be so cautious." The person who spoke was wearing an ordinary Dark Thunder Guard's uniform. He was the commander of the city guards, Su Ji. Lung Shiqi said, "There's nothing wrong with being careful. Du Hechang must be up to something by sneaking out of the city. We should follow him for a while and see what he's up to." Suji frowned slightly. "You Dark Thunder Guards are too troublesome. Are you the only one who came this time?" Lung Shiqi replied, "With Commander Su here, we can fight against thousands of soldiers." "That's true." Suji smiled proudly. In his opinion, Du Hechang and his 2 trusted aides might be in the spiritual pulse realm, but he could kill them with a flip of his hand. Lung Shiqi and Suji followed Du Hechang's group until late at night, when Du Hechang walked into a valley. This valley was remote and uninhabited. It was a good place to kill. At this moment, Suji was getting impatient. He had to personally train the city guards every morning. He had to rush back before dawn. Suji said, "Lord Lu, I think this place is good. Don't follow them anymore. Just kill them, and the Du family will be half dead." Lung Shiqi purposely hesitated for a while before agreeing. Then, the 2 of them sneaked into the valley. Soon, They saw Du Hachang's group standing at the side as if they were waiting for someone. Lung Shiqi and Su Ji looked at each other and nodded. Then, Lung Shiqi pulled out his inky jade sword and jumped out. Under the cover of the night, the inky jade sword stabbed at Du Hachang. However, Du Hachang was already prepared. The three of them pointed their fingers at the same time. Green, blue, and purple finger forces burst out and instantly shattered Lung Shiqi's inky jade sword. Lung Shiqi moved his inky jade sword and slashed out majestic inky jade sword to dissolve the three finger forces. Du Hachang smiled. Lu Xingji, you really came. Lung Shiqi's expression changed. Did you lure me here on purpose? Haha, Lu Xingji, today is the day you die. Do it. The moment Du Hachang's voice fell, the three closed in at the same time. Lung Shiqi shouted in a low voice, Do you think I will come alone? Du Hachang said, Of course not. No matter how many people you bring here today, this will be your burial ground. Lung Shiqi snorted, What arrogance! Commander Su, please show yourself. Who? Commander Su. Du Hachang's heart also tightened. At this moment, a burly figure walked out from the darkness. Seeing this person, Du Hachang immediately exclaimed, City Guard Grand Commander Su Ji. Su Ji crossed his arms and said with a sneer on his face, Just now, you said that no matter how many people there are, they will all be buried here. I will return those words to you. Su Ji formed a blade with his palm. A destructive blade aura suddenly appeared and lit up the entire night sky. With a wave of the blade aura, it instantly tore apart the night sky and turned into a long waterfall that was about to tear Du Hachang and the others apart. However, at this moment, the night sky suddenly shone with a dazzling radiance like the sun. The appearance of the radiance actually directly melted Su Ji's blade aura. Su Ji was immediately shocked. He focused and said, Who are you? I am the Grand Commander of Lan Chi City's City Guard. Please show yourself. He clearly felt that the person's cultivation was far above his. At the very least, he was an expert in the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Su Ji? Never heard of you. A voice sounded, but it made Su Ji's expression even more unsightly. When the person who spoke walked over, Su Ji's expression turned into one of shock. Li Xianyang? Xianyang Sect Master, Li Xianyang. Why are you here? Li Xianyang didn't intend to answer his question. He only said indifferently, Just now, you said that everyone here will be buried here. I will return those words to you. Before Li Xianyang finished speaking, a ball of light like the sun suddenly lit up. He held the sun in his hand, and it rippled with strange ripples. The sun-like palm fell with a loud rumble. Not only did it devour the night sky, it also wanted to devour Su Ji. A broadsword appeared in Su Ji's hand. The surrounding spiritual energy was madly absorbed into the sword. Soon after, the sword slashed out. It was actually a heavenly wolf howling at the moon. The image of a huge wolf flashed behind Su Ji, and the sharp blade aura slashed towards the sun. However, although the heavenly wolf howling at the moon, it couldn't resist the 9-heaven Sunday. The blade aura only weakened the huge sun by a bit before it was completely destroyed. Su Ji swung his sword 3 times in succession before he could barely block this attack. His aura was actually starting to become a little chaotic. The difference between the early stage of the Spirit Aperture realm and the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm was actually so great. Su Ji's heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. He never would have thought that chasing after 3 spiritual pulse stage cultivators would lead to a spiritual aperture stage late stage expert, and a sect master at that. Su Ji wasn't stupid. He already faintly guessed that this was a conspiracy, but it wasn't directed at him. If he hadn't gone to find Lung Shiqi, then the only one here would be Lung Shiqi himself. In other words, everything was directed at Lung Shiqi, and he had been dragged into it. Su Ji knew that he wasn't Li Xuanyang's opponent, but he also knew that Li Xianyang definitely wouldn't let him leave. Now, his only way out was to do everything he could to escape with his life. However, Li Xianyang didn't hide the dense killing intent in his eyes. Su Ji's appearance was indeed outside of their plan, but since he had run out, then they would deal with him together. Li Xianyang didn't say anything and slapped out again. At the same time, Du Hechang and the other two joined forces to attack Lung Shiqi. The other two were also high-level members of the Du family, Du Hakai and Du Helen. Both of them were at the middle stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. With the three of them attacking at the same time, Lung Shiqi immediately fell into a disadvantage. However, Lung Shiqi also noticed that the three's attacks were fierce, but they didn't have any killing intent. They seemed to only want to restrain him, because for Du Hechang, Lung Shiqi was more useful alive than dead. Lung Shiqi took the time to look at Su Ji. At this moment, Su Ji was no longer at a disadvantage, but was completely at a disadvantage. It was to the extent that if this continued, he would most likely die here. However, all of this was within his expectations. The reason why he agreed to Su Ji's request 3 days ago was to use this method to get rid of Su Ji. Next, he began to struggle against the three's combined attacks. Not long after, a few wounds appeared on Lung Shiqi's body, while Su Ji was covered in blood. Li Xuanyang's body glowed with a golden light as he slammed down with his palm. Endless spirit energy tore through the night sky and shattered everything. Of course, this included Su Ji. Before Su Ji died, he was filled with regret. He regretted coveting Lung Shiqi's resources and causing him to die in the wilderness. His death was worthless. Chapter 327. Su Ji, the commander of Lan Chi City's city guards, had died just like that. He could only blame his opponent for being too strong. Su Ji's cultivation was much weaker than Li Xuanyang's. Moreover, Li Xianyang was the sect master, and the entire sect's resources were concentrated on him alone. Therefore, Li Xuanyang's battle prowess far surpassed cultivators of the same level, not to mention Su Ji. In the end, Su Ji didn't even have the chance to escape before he was killed by Li Xianyang. Seeing Su Ji die, Du Hechang and the other two also stopped. The three of them surrounded Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi secretly absorbed Su Ji's remnant soul. The soul force of a spirit aperture realm expert was a great supplement. Not only did it increase his mental power and physical strength, it even healed his injuries. At this time, Li Xianyang walked over and said, "Do you know who I am?" Who doesn't know Li Xianyang, the sect master of the profound Yang sect? Lung Shiqi said indifferently, "Then you should know that you have no ability to resist in front of me." That's right. Li Xianyang saw that Lung Shiqi didn't show any fear and couldn't help but praise. "You only suffered light injuries under the siege of 3 Spirit Aperture's realm cultivators. You can still be so calm in front of me. I have to say that you're quite a character. It's a pity to kill you so easily." Lung Shiqi was surprised. "What? Sect Masterly wants to let me go." Du Hechang continued. "Of course we won't let you go. However, I'm afraid you'll become a puppet in our hands in the future." Lung Shiqi showed a panicked expression and said, What are you doing?" Du Hechang saw Lung Shiqi's expression and felt a burst of joy in his heart. Li Xianyang took out a palm-sized box from his mustard seed bag and opened it. Inside was a thumb-sized bug that emitted a faint glow. This is the heart-controlling Gu unique to Zhu country. In terms of rank, it's a 6-tier treasure. It's a bit of a waste to use it on you, but since you're a supervisor, we'll be able to move the refined iron around as we please, Du Hechang said with a smile. Lung Shiqi gritted his teeth. Zhu fine iron. Good Du Hechang, good profound Yang sect, so you guys actually dare to smuggle refined iron to Zhu country. This kind of action is enough for you to die 100 times over. Lord Liu, you speak so righteously. Aren't you also secretly supporting the other clans in their smuggling business? Once the mind-controlling goo is planted in your body, you will completely lose your own consciousness. Even if something happens, you, the supervisor, will have to take the blame for us. Ha ha ha. Du Hechang laughed crazily. He had been suffering day and night for the past few days, and he was also afraid. He was afraid that the Lung Shiqi would do the same thing he did to the Jiang family, and come knocking on his door unreasonably. At this moment, seeing that the situation was set, he finally released the resentment that he had been suppressing for a long time. "All right, cut the crap," Li Xianyang said. "I will plant the mind-controlling goo in him. You guys patrol the surroundings and don't disturb me." Du Yichang and the other two replied, "Yes." Li Xianyang picked up the mind-controlling goo. The goo looked beautiful and delicate, more like a work of art than a terrible goo poison. Li Xianyang said with a gloomy face, "Lu Xingji, you have no one to blame but yourself for being unlucky enough to meet me." Then Li Xianyang closed his 5 fingers, and several golden rays turned into ropes that firmly bound Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi secretly struggled a few times and found that the golden ropes were very tough. Even if he used all his strength, he might not be able to break them. Li Xianyang said, "Don't waste your strength. Become my puppet." As he spoke, he gently cut a deep wound in Lung Shiqi's heart with his finger. He said with slight surprise, "Oh, your body is actually so strong. That's good. The more vigorous your qi and blood, the better you can raise the mind-controlling goo." Li Xianyang added a bit more strength and cut the wound even deeper. He could even see the beating heart inside. Strangely, Lung Shiqi did not bleed at all. It was because the golden rays flowing around the edge of the wound prevented blood from flowing out. Li Xianyang did not want Lung Shiqi to bleed to death. Then, he put the mind-controlling goo into Lung Shiqi's heart. He muttered an incantation that Lung Shiqi could not understand, and Lung Shiqi felt his heart being bitten. In fact, it was indeed so. The mind-controlling goo bit a small hole in Lung Shiqi's heart, and then it drilled into the small hole. Lung Shiqi suddenly felt his consciousness become blurry. His mind was in chaos, as if he had drunk a lot of wine. Li Xuanyang's incantation continued. After a while, Lung Shiqi's eyes became blurry and then returned to normal. However, at this time, Lung Shiqi's eyes were very empty, without a trace of color. Li Xuanyang's face was a little pale. He did not know goo techniques. He purely used his powerful cultivation to activate goo techniques, so the consumption was relatively high. When he saw Lung Shiqi's appearance, he still smiled. At this time, Du Yichang came over. "Sec Masterly, did you succeed?" Li Xianyang nodded and said, "Not bad. Watch carefully." Then, he chanted an incantation, and Lung Shiqi's eyes appeared again. After he woke up, he said to Li Xianyang, "Master." Du Yichang saw this and laughed. "There is actually such a magical goo technique in the world." "Wonderful, wonderful," Li Xianyang said. "I will give you the incantation to control the spirit cultivator later. In the future, he will be under your control. However, you must not complicate matters. Just control him and help us gather a large amount of fine iron as soon as possible." "Understood. This Du understands." Du Yichang nodded his head. "There is one more thing," Li Xianyang said. "Su Ji came out with Lu Xingji. He might have some kind of deal with the City Lord Manor. You must ask around and fool them about Su Ji's death." "Sec Master Li, don't worry. We now have a supervisor in our hands. Great things can be expected." Li Xianyang laughed. "Ha! As long as this is successful, I will help Patriarch Du break through to the Spirit Aperture realm. I won't go back on my word." Du Yichang was also laughing so hard that his mouth was almost crooked. Then, Li Xianyang passed the incantation to Du Yichang. He only managed to learn it when dawn was about to break. Du Yichang gave it a try and said, "Lu Xingji, when we return, order all the Dark Lightning Guards to stop monitoring the transportation of fine iron." Lung Shiqi said stiffly, "Yes, master." Du Yichang changed the incantation, and Lung Shiqi returned to normal. Then he left on his own. Du Yichang and the other two returned to Lanqi City through another path. What they didn't know was that not long after Lung Shiqi left, his body emitted a green glow. Nine Leaves' voice sounded, "All right, stop pretending." Chapter 328. Lung Shiqi suddenly stopped in his tracks. He clutched his chest, and his eyes were filled with a sinister glint. He took the risk and deliberately let Li Xianyang plant the mind-controlling goo in his body so that he could lurk around them. This way, he could collect evidence of their crimes and wait for an opportunity to find out what they were going to do next. As for the mind-controlling goo, this goo worm was indeed strange. From a certain point of view, it could control a person's mind, and the person being controlled wouldn't know that they had become a puppet. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful this goo worm was, it was nothing in front of the rank 7-9 Leave. After Lung Shiqi left, 9 Leave had already swallowed most of the mind-controlling goo's soul. In other words, the mind-controlling goo was in a half-dead state, but it was still in Lung Shiqi's heart. This way, Li Xianyang and Du Hechang could sense the mind-controlling goo, but they couldn't really control Lung Shiqi. At this time, a purple light flew out from between Lung Shiqi's eyebrows and fell into his hand. It was a purple gem-like thing. 9 Leaves said, "Everything that happened just now has been recorded here." Lung Shiqi was overjoyed. This was one of 9 Leaves' secret techniques. It could record all images and sounds for a period of time. He watched it carefully. This video recorded the incident where Li Xianyang and Du Hachang self-destructed and smuggled refined iron to sell to Zhu Lugua. This could be considered as solid evidence. However, this wasn't enough to take down a third-rate faction. It would be best if he could catch them red-handed. That would be a great contribution. Then Lung Shiqi used the Fate skill and teleported back to his room in Dark Thunder Manor. Then he went back to his room through the ground. The reason why he was so troublesome was because there was another Lung Shiqi in the room. The other Lung Shiqi was naturally Thousand Face. Lung Shiqi went out for 2 purposes. One of them was to use Li Xianyang to get rid of Su Ji. Only a few people knew that Su Ji had left the city. Of course, these people would not leak it out. His body had also been disposed of. If nothing unexpected happened, no one would know that he was dead for a very long time. At most, he could only be considered missing. However, the sudden disappearance of the commander of the city guards, a Spirit Aperture Realm expert, was not a small matter. The City Lord's mansion would definitely send people to investigate. Su Ji had come to Lung Shiqi a few days ago, but he disappeared not long after. Lung Shiqi was more or less suspicious. Therefore, he had to have an alibi. Thus, Lung Shiqi instructed Thousand Face to disguise himself as him after delivering the letter. Furthermore, Thousand Face had to deal with the affairs under the light of the lantern. From time to time, Thousand Face would call for someone to deliver some tea, pretending that he had always been at Dark Thunder Manor. When Thousand Face saw Lung Shiqi return, he didn't say anything. He just nodded and quietly left. Lung Shiqi sat down and rested for a while. Too many things had happened in one night, but fortunately, everything was still under his control. Now, he needed to cooperate with Du Hechang to collect large amounts of fine iron. When the sun rose, Lung Shiqi called the 3 Dark Thunder envoys to the meeting hall. Qiao Qian, Qiu Cheng, and Peng Yuan bowed. "Greetings, sir." Qiao Qian and Qiu Cheng were a bit confused. It was still early in the morning, yet Lung Shiqi had called them over. Was there something urgent? Unexpectedly, Lung Shiqi opened his mouth and said, "From today onwards, withdraw all surveillance of the Du clan." HM. This time, they were not confused but shocked. 2 days ago, he said that he would constantly monitor the Du clan's every move. Now he was suddenly giving up? However, they didn't ask any questions. They all nodded in agreement. Lung Shiqi asked, "I mentioned last time, are there people in the surrounding cities transporting fine iron?" Qiu Cheng was in charge of intelligence, so he knew the situation in the other cities the best. He replied, "Sir, I didn't know before investigating. After investigating, there were actually many clans secretly transporting fine iron. However, this humble one is curious. Fine iron itself isn't very profitable, and the Imperial Court has repeatedly forbidden private sales. Why are they still doing this?" Lung Shiqi said, "Pass down the order. Have the subordinates continue to monitor and collect evidence, but don't do anything. If possible, help them secretly transport fine iron." Qiu Cheng's doubts deepened, but he seemed to feel that this matter wasn't simple. Xiao Qian's body trembled slightly. An idea appeared in his mind. He muttered, casting a long line to catch a big fish. Lung Shiqi heard this and looked at Xiao Qian with praise. Qiu Cheng also realized that there were people secretly transporting fine iron in the surrounding cities. This couldn't be a coincidence. But why would they do this? Where did the fine iron go in the end? There must be a conspiracy behind this. Catching a few clans secretly transporting fine iron wouldn't be much of a merit. If they could catch a bunch of the masterminds, it would be a great merit. Qiu Cheng hated that he wasn't as smart as Xiao Qian. Lung Shiqi asked again, in the past, what should we do if we encounter trouble that we can't solve? A Dark Thunder Manor like Lanqi cities was usually led by a Spirit Aperture Realm supervisor, a few Spirit Pulse Realm Dark Thunder envoys, and dozens of Spirit Transformation Realm Dark Thunder guards. This kind of strength was equivalent to 50% of a third-rate sect. It wasn't weak. However, Lung Shiqi was dealing with a third-rate sect. He definitely wasn't a match for Li Xianyang. So how could he take down the profound Yang sect? Qiu Cheng was the most senior of the three. He didn't guess Lung Shiqi's intention just now. So he hurriedly said, Sir, we did encounter this kind of situation before. Generally speaking, we can directly report it to Sir Duan Chun, who is in charge of the North County. Lung Shiqi tapped his fingers. If we report it to Sir Duan Chun, we won't get much credit. Is there any other way? Qiu Cheng hesitated and said, It's not that there is no other way. Our Dark Thunder Guards have more power, so you can actually mobilize some city guards. In addition, our Discipline Commission in the North County is also within the scope of mobilization. However, the rules are the rules, but it's hard to say whether they will contribute or not. City Guards, Discipline Commission. Lung Shiqi muttered these two names. He was in urgent need of a large number of people now, but the Discipline Commission was the first to be ruled out by him. The Discipline Commission was different from the Dark Thunder Guards. There was only one branch of the Discipline Commission in the entire North County. There were several Spirit Astral Realm experts in the branch, which deterred the Spirit Cultivation sects in the North County. As a Spirit Pulse Stage Supervisor, the chances of him being able to recruit people were very slim. Thus, he could only set his sights on the city guards. Chapter 329. In the Misty Chi City's City Lord Manor, the City Lord, Sun Gang, was listening to his subordinate's report with a displeased expression. He was displeased because the commander of the city guards, Su Ji, didn't show up today. According to the City Lord Manor's rules, Su Ji had to train the city guards every morning and arrange for them to patrol the city. However, it was already late in the morning, and Su Ji still hadn't shown up. He didn't even look for Su Ji in his residence. Where did this Su Ji go? Sun Gang's heart was filled with both doubt and anger. He said, Tell me Su Ji's recent whereabouts. The person beside him, who was the vice commander of the city guards, Ning Xiu, took out a report. This subordinate has already prepared it. Please take a look, City Lord. Sun Gang looked at Ning Xiu meaningfully and took the report. When he saw that Su Ji had gone to look for Lung Shiqi, he frowned. He thought to himself, Su Ji still went to provoke Lu Xingji. Could it be related to Lu Xingji that he didn't show up today? Just as he was thinking, a servant outside reported, City Lord, the Dark Thunder Guard's supervisor, Sir Lu, requests an audience. Sun Gang was just thinking about Lung Shiqi, and now Lung Shiqi came to his door. Could it be that this matter really had something to do with him? Sun Gang said, Please go to the main hall. Yes. Oh, Ning Xiu. Su Ji isn't here, so I'll leave the city guards to you for the time being. I'll go see the guest first. Ning Xiu was delighted and bowed. This subordinate will take his leave. Not long after Lung Shiqi sat down in the main hall of the City Lord Manor, Sun Gang walked in. I'm ashamed to have kept Sir Lu waiting. Misty Chi City's City Lord Manor was much stronger than Dark Thunder Manor, but in terms of official ranks, Lung Shiqi and Sun Gang were on the same level. However, as the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guard, Lung Shiqi had the right to supervise the City Lord Manor, so Sun Gang had to be polite when he saw Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi's first impression of Sun Gang was that he was an old fox. He was much harder to deal with than Su Ji. The two of them praised each other for a while. Seeing that it was about time, Sun Gang asked, "Lord Lu is supervising the surrounding cities and must be very busy. May I know why you are here today?" Lung Shiqi smiled and said, "You flatter me. I don't visit you without a reason. Today, I have something to ask of you." "Oh, what is it that even the Dark Thunder Guards can't solve?" "This Sun is willing to hear the details," Sun Gang said with a serious expression. Lung Shiqi also said seriously, "Actually, I'm here to ask City Lord Sun to help me deal with someone." "Who is it?" "Li Xianyang, sect leader of the Xianyang sect," Lung Shiqi said word by word. Sun Gang was trying to guess Lung Shiqi's intentions. Li Xianyang is the sect master of a third-rate sect. Does Lord Lu want to deal with him? Lung Shiqi understood Sun Gang's meaning. The Xianyang sect secretly colluded with other countries and collected a large amount of iron that is forbidden by the dynasty. I'm preparing to capture them. I'm ashamed to say that Li Xianyang is a Spirit Aperture Realm late-stage expert. No one of my Dark Thunder residents can deal with him. That's why I'm here to ask City Lord Sun to help." Sun Gang heard this and asked, "Lord Lu wants to deal with a Spirit Cultivator sect. This is not a small matter. Does Lord Lu have evidence?" "The evidence is conclusive," Lung Shiqi said with certainty. Then this Sun is even more confused. If this is true, Lord Lu only needs to report this to the North Region's Great Supervisor Duan Shan. He will naturally deal with the Xianyang sect. Lung Shiqi didn't hide his thoughts and said directly, "Lord Duan Shan can indeed deal with the Xianyang sect easily. Then I won't be able to get much credit." At this time, Sun Gang also saw the ambition in Lung Shiqi, but he said, "Lord Lu is right. But then again, this matter has nothing to do with the City Lord Mansion. To say the least, even if I help Lord Lu to deal with Li Xianyang, in the end, the credit will still be yours. Our City Lord Mansion won't get any benefits." Lung Shiqi knew this would happen. "City Lord Sun, may I ask who is stronger between you and Li Xianyang?" It was reasonable to say that this kind of question was impolite, but Sun Gang knew that Lung Shiqi must have a reason to ask this. He pondered for a moment and said, "Li Xianyang and I are both at the 8th level of Spirit Aperture Realm. But as the leader of a sect, he must enjoy more resources than me. In terms of fighting power, I'm afraid he is stronger than me." Sun Gang didn't hide it and said honestly. This point alone showed that his breadth of mind was incomparable to ordinary people. Lung Shiqi said, "May I ask how long it will take for City Lord Sun to break through to Gang's Spirit Realm?" Gang's Spirit Realm. Hearing these 3 words, a trace of loneliness flashed through Sun Gang's eyes. This time he didn't answer, but asked back, "Why do you say so, Lord Lu?" Lung Shiqi chuckled. "If City Lord Sun helps me to deal with Li Xianyang, I have a way to get the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal for City Lord Sun." "What?" Even Sun Gang, the City Lord at the late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm, was surprised when he heard the words First Origin 9 Aperture Crystal. He looked straight at Lung Shiqi and asked in a deep voice, "Can Lord Lu really get the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal?" Lung Shiqi met Sun Gang's eyes and said, "Absolutely." "Good. I promise you." Sun Gang finally couldn't refuse the opportunity to break through to Gang's Spirit Realm, so he agreed. "However, I will only deal with Li Xianyang, and I won't care about the others. Besides, this is my personal matter, and it has nothing to do with the City Lord Mansion or the City Guard." "I understand. When I'm ready to take action, I will send someone to inform City Lord Sun. Goodbye." Lung Shiqi cupped his hands and strode out of the City Lord Mansion. It was worth it to win over Sun Gang this time. Although he was still far less powerful than Xianyang's sect, he had a way to lure Li Xianyang out. At that time, it was not impossible to destroy Xianyang's sect by attacking them one by one. After returning to the Dark Thunder Mansion, Lung Shiqi continued his closed-door training after explaining everything. He still had more than 30 spiritual skills to deduce. Moreover, the plan against Xianyang's sect needed time to be carried out slowly. He could take advantage of this time to improve his strength as much as possible. The more powerful he was, the smoother the plan would be. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. At this time, Lung Shiqi was soaking in a large tub filled with light brown liquid. Lung Shiqi's body was surrounded by a faint devil qi. The devil qi was constantly absorbing the power in the liquid and integrating it into Lung Shiqi's body. He was using the medicinal bath to strengthen his body. At the same time, he was also running the evil 9 secret beast blood record to cultivate his spiritual energy. In his spiritual fantasy world, his spiritual body was also deducing his spiritual energy. He was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt the poisonous heart control insect in his heart move. Chapter 330. Lung Shiqi immediately stopped cultivating when he felt the heart-controlling goo in his body move. He knew that Du Hachong was contacting him. Coincidentally, there was a knock on his door at the same time. He knew that the time was ripe. Lung Shiqi removed the soul-splitting technique and put on his clothes. This month of closed-door cultivation had benefited him greatly. First, in terms of cultivation, he had several top cultivation techniques. Coupled with the 3rd cycle spirit melting pill and spirit stones, he had touched the bottleneck of the 7th level of the spirit vein realm. Unfortunately, the gap between the 6th and 7th level was huge. It was not something that could be broken through in a short period of time. In addition to his cultivation, the strength of his body had also been strengthened by the continuous use of good quality medicinal baths. In terms of strength, his current physical strength was comparable to a spirit cultivator at the 3rd level of the spirit transformation realm. In addition, his mental strength had been absorbing the power of the heaven demon spirit crystal. He had also been deducing spirit techniques and was constantly growing. In terms of spirit techniques, he had also gained a lot in this month. He had already comprehended a unique technique, but he had further integrated it with the formation breaking cross spear. Wu Xiang had given him a spear technique called the Golden Scale Spear Technique. He had integrated this technique into the formation breaking cross spear, becoming an even more powerful Golden Scale cross spear. In addition, he had made breakthroughs in his movement and claw techniques. Although his cultivation did not have a major breakthrough, his strength had improved. After tidying up, Lung Shiqi opened the door. Qiu Cheng and the other 2 were standing outside. Seeing Lung Shiqi come out, Qiu Cheng said, "Sir, the 6 families have sent this month's offerings, but they must see you personally." Xiao Qian said excitedly, "My lord, the offerings from these 6 clans are at least twice as much as the previous 9 clans combined." Lung Shiqi nodded. "I know. Bring them to the meeting room." Not long after, the patriarchs of the 6 families met Lung Shiqi in the meeting hall. Their faces were all flushed with joy. Zhong Cheng was the first to speak. "Lord Liu, you really are a lucky star. In the past month, our profits have tripled compared to the past. This was just the beginning. There would definitely be more and more in the future. We really don't know how to repay you." Lung Shiqi secretly laughed. These people were now begging him to come. Now that they had gotten benefits, they were afraid that Lung Shiqi would kick them out. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone, there's no need to be like this. We're just mutually benefiting each other. As long as you abide by my rules, you'll enjoy endless glory and wealth." Yes. Lord Liu is right. In the future, as long as Lord Liu has any orders, we will definitely do our best to fulfill them. Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows slightly. "Oh, is that so?" The 6 patriarchs all said in unison, "Of course." "Very good," Lung Shiqi said. "In the next 2 days, each family will send 1 Spirit Pulse Realm Cultivator and 10 Spirit Transformation Realm Cultivators to lend them to me." The 6 patriarchs were slightly stunned. They were just being polite. Who knew that Lung Shiqi really had something to say? And he wanted them as soon as he opened his mouth? Even the weakest had to be at the Spirit Transformation Realm? The Wang family elder hesitated for a moment, then said righteously, "Lord Liu, our Wang family only has 1 Spirit Pulse Realm Cultivator left. If Lord Liu has any orders, this old man will not be afraid, even if his bones are crushed. Zhong Cheng also reacted quickly and hurriedly said, "This Zhong is the same." When the others saw that even the Wang family elder had agreed, what reason did they have to disagree? Moreover, they didn't dare to disagree. Lung Shiqi said, "Everyone, don't worry. Your people won't do anything dangerous. After this, however many people you send will return. Not a single one will be missing." At this moment, the few of them felt relieved and agreed one after another. After Lung Shiqi sent these people away, he called Xiao Qian and the other two over and ordered them to secretly gather the scattered Dark Thunder Guards back. After dealing with these matters, Lung Shiqi quietly sneaked into the Du residence. At this moment, Du Hechong was secretly talking to a black-clothed man in the Du residence. "Patriarch Du, the sect master has given the order. The time is set to be 3 days later at Ai Ming Mountain, 100 miles away from Misty Chi City." Du Hechong frowned slightly and said, "Ai Ming Mountain? The place isn't very hidden. Why choose that place? Anyways, the supervisor of Misty Chi City's Dark Thunder Manor is in our hands. As long as he makes the arrangements, nothing will go wrong." "That's true. Who?" Before Du Hechong could finish his sentence, he suddenly realized that a figure had mysteriously appeared in the room. When he saw the appearance of the person, he laughed sinisterly. "So it's our supervisor." Du Hechong chanted an incantation. Lung Shiqi immediately became expressionless and stared blankly. He said, "Go back and order the Dark Thunder Guards to not let anyone near Ai Ming Mountain for 10 days. 3 days later, you'll personally lead people to guard the entrances around Ai Ming Mountain." "All right, you can go back first." Lung Shiqi said stiffly, "Yes." After returning to Dark Thunder Manor, Lung Shiqi immediately issued one order after another. All the Dark Thunder Guards, including the people of the 6 great families, were mobilized. In these 2 days, the 6 great families had sent out several caravans. This was very normal, so it didn't attract anyone's attention. But what others didn't know was that some of the caravans had secretly lost a few people midway, and these people had secretly gathered near Ai Ming Mountain. In addition, the Misty Chi City's city lord, Sun Gang, personally went out of the city to investigate the disappearance of the city guard commander Su Ji. In Profound Yang's sect, Li Xianyang was also making arrangements. When he heard the report from his subordinates that the plan was going well, he couldn't help but smile. "Very good. Now go and inform Mr. Gill that the deal will be held in Ai Ming Mountain 3 days later." First Origin 9 Aperture Crystal, Gang Spirit Realm. All mine, all mine. Li Xianyang laughed crazily, as if the Gang's Spirit Realm was waving to him. As for Lung Shiqi, he was also negotiating with 9 Leave at this time. "Senior 9 Leave, the resources sent by the 6 great families today, plus half of the resources from the Du family, will be the reward for helping me solve the mind-controlling bug last time. Do you think it's enough?" 9 Leave said, "Although the quality of those resources is a little low, there are a lot of them left." "Okay." Lung Shiqi said again, "These families don't have any high-level resources, but Profound Yang's sect definitely has some." "Oomph. Do you think I can't tell what you're thinking? If you want to borrow my strength, you have to give me at least half of the resources of Profound Yang's sect." 9 Leave asked for half of the resources of a third-class sect. However, Lung Shiqi did not hesitate at all and readily agreed. "Deal." Both Lung Shiqi and Li Xianyang were making arrangements to welcome the coming storm. Chapter 331. 3 days later, in the middle of the night, Lan Chi City gradually returned to silence, but Ai Ming Mountain was quite lively. Lung Shiqi led a group of Dark Lightning Guards to guard every entrance and exit of Ai Ming Mountain, forbidding anyone from entering. However, 2 groups of people were let in. One of them was Li Xianyang. Li Xianyang brought his 4 direct disciples and 20 elite disciples of the Spirit Transformation Realm into Ai Ming Mountain. The other group came from Zhu Lu country, led by a strangely dressed man with a large beard. This kind of person was not rare in the West Desolate Province, and could be seen in every city, so he did not attract the attention of others. He was the one who made the deal with Li Xianyang, Jill. Jill and two other Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators entered AI Ming Mountain. His own cultivation was only at the Spirit Pulse Realm, because although the Thunderblaze dynasty had trade relations with the 6 countries of the West, they had strict requirements for the people from the 6 countries of the West. One of the most important rules was that foreigners of the Spirit Aperture Realm and above were not allowed to enter the dynasty. While restricting the cultivation of the people from the 6 countries of the West, all the city lords of the West Desolate Province were Spirit Aperture Realm experts. As a result, the 6 countries of the West would not be able to make any waves. But today, Zhu Lu country took advantage of this loophole. Li Xianyang and Jill met at AI Ming Mountain. When Li Xianyang saw Jill, it was as if he saw the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal walking towards him. He was not worried that Jill would go back on his words. The reason why he chose to make the deal at AI Ming Mountain was not only because Lung Shiqi could cover for them, but also to secretly warn Jill that this was the Thunderblaze dynasty, the territory of a Xianyang sect. If Jill dared to go back on his words, he would definitely not let him go back. The two did not exchange too many pleasantries. They both knew the urgency of the matter. The sooner they completed the deal, the less trouble there would be. Li Xianyang ordered his disciples to guard the surroundings while he took out more than 20 mustard seed bags from his bag. Just these mustard seed bags alone were worth a lot. Jill immediately took one of the mustard seed bags and opened it. Inside, there were countless iron essences neatly stacked. He could not help but smile. Jill said in a strange accent, "Sect Leader Li, I'm very satisfied with the goods. I believe His Majesty will be very satisfied as well. This is the gift we prepared for Sect Leader Li." As Jill spoke, he took out a jade box. When he opened the jade box, a 9-colored glazed light burst out from within. Li Xianyang looked greedily at the palm-sized crystal in front of him. It was none other than the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal. He took the first Origin 9 Aperture crystal with trembling hands and held it tightly, as if he was holding onto his future. He laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha! Mr. Jill is indeed a man of his word. Of course, we Zhu Lu people value credibility the most," Jill said as he picked up a small pile of mustard seed bags. However, at this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Both of their expressions tensed up. When Li Xianyang saw that it was Lung Shiqi, he asked, "What happened?" "A caravan is camping at the foot of the mountain," Lung Shiqi said stiffly. "Caravan?" Li Xianyang and Jill looked at each other. Li Xianyang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Tonight's matter could not be leaked, otherwise he and the profound Yang sect would fall into the abyss. Li Xianyang said, "Lead the Dark Thunder Guards and kill them all." Lung Shiqi said, "There are many of them. I can't guarantee that none will survive." Li Xianyang frowned. "Chang, take the Spirit Transformation Realm disciples to assist the Dark Thunder Guards. Do not let a single one escape." "Yes, Master." A late-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator nodded. Then he led the 20 Spirit Transformation Realm disciples of the profound Yang sect down the mountain with Lung Shiqi. Jill said, "Sect Leader Li, there won't be any accidents, right?" "Don't worry, Mr. Jill. It's just a small problem. I'm sure it won't take long to deal with." Li Xianyang obviously didn't put the caravan in his eyes. "But your people will inevitably leave traces behind. Furthermore, it's not convenient for us to leave now." Jill seemed to be a little anxious. Li Xianyang smiled. "Mr. Jill, do you know who that person was?" "Who was it?" Li Xianyang explained. "That's the Dark Thunder Guard's supervisor in charge of inspecting the vicinity of Mist Chi City, Lu Xingji. With him here, he will clean up all traces here. Furthermore, no one will investigate this matter. Sect Leader Li can actually control the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards?" Jill exclaimed. "Haha, it's all thanks to the mind-controlling voodoo that Mr. Jill gave me. The mind-controlling voodoo is just a tool. It's truly admirable that Sect Leader Li can use it to control a supervisor. No wonder Sect Leader Li can collect the refined iron so smoothly." As the two spoke, They heard sounds of fighting coming from the foot of the mountain, as well as some fluctuations of spiritual energy. It seemed that their people were already silencing the poor caravan. After a while, the commotion below became quieter. Li Xianyang guessed that it should be over. Not long after, a group of 22 people came over. Li Xianyang smiled when he saw that other than Lung Shiqi, the rest were all wearing the profound Yang sect's uniform. Lung Shiqi stepped forward and said, "Everyone has been silenced." Very good." Li Xianyang nodded in satisfaction. At this time, Chang walked up to Li Xianyang and opened his mouth, as if he had something to say. Li Xianyang said, "Speak." Chang leaned close to Li Xianyang's ear and said, "Go to hell." The moment that Chang opened his mouth, he threw a punch forward. As he punched out, fiery light instantly rose up in the dark night, condensing into a cloud of fire, burning the heaven and earth. How could Li Xianyang have imagined that his eldest personal disciple would sneak up on him? Moreover, his disciple Chang didn't practice fist techniques at all. This Chang was a fake. Even more frightening was that the power of this fiery fist energy was no less than his. This meant that the attacker's cultivation was on par with his. However, Chang was too close to him. Li Xianyang had no time to counterattack and could only release a golden glow from his body to block the attack. The fiery cloud instantly tore through Li Xianyang's golden glow, and the fiery fist energy slammed into his body. Even though Li Xianyang was at the 8th level of the spirit aperture realm, he hadn't practiced any body refining techniques. Moreover, he wasn't young. After being ambushed by Sun Gang, who was disguised as Chang, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and was heavily injured. At the same time, the other 21 people split into two. Half went to kill the remaining 3 Spirit Pulse Realm disciples, while the other half went to attack Jill and the other 2. Among them, Lung Shiqi took the lead and unsheathed his inky jade sword. With a tyrannical inky sword light, he stabbed towards Jill. At this time, Lung Shiqi finally revealed his ferocious fangs. Chapter 332. All of this had happened too suddenly. It was so sudden that even Li Xianyang could not react, not to mention his 3 disciples and Jill. Although the 6 of them were all in the Spirit Pulse realm, under the joint attack of Lung Shiqi and his 3 Dark Lightning envoys, as well as the experts of the 6 great families, they immediately fell into a dead end. And the reason for all of this was the caravan that came to AI Ming Mountain, which was actually a team of experts from the 6 great families. Lung Shiqi calculated that Li Xianyang would definitely not let this caravan go, so he used a lack of manpower as an excuse to transfer away a portion of Li Xianyang's fighting strength. The battle at the foot of the mountain was actually caused by Lung Shiqi and the rest killing Chang and the others. After that, Thousand Face Mask disguised everyone and put on the profound Yang sect clothes to prepare for a sneak attack on Li Xianyang. As the main force, Sun Gang's city lord naturally disguised himself as Chang, the only one who could get close to Li Xianyang. Thus, the scene in front of them happened. Once they started fighting, Sun Gang's disguise also disappeared, and Li Xianyang immediately recognized him. Li Xianyang was shocked. "Sun Gang, why are you here?" Sun Gang roared. "Humph, you secretly colluded with the Zhu Lu country. Your crime is unforgivable. Everyone should kill you." Sun Gang clenched his fists, and the clothes on his body immediately flew off, only to see 8 sparkling spirit veins on his arms, as well as dozens of resplendent stars. Those were the spirit cavities. Sun Gang's cultivation technique was obviously very extreme. He gathered all the spirit veins and spirit cavities on his arms. This way, his fist technique would be boundless. Sun Gang's fists collided, and a loud boom sounded out, following which a scarlet red sun appeared. The entire AI Ming Mountain was enveloped in waves of heat. Li Xianyang roared, his palms facing the sky, and the surrounding spirit energy of heaven and earth frantically gathered. Pieces of golden light constantly surged, and a golden sun rose in the sky. This was Li Xianyang's foundation, the glorious sun, mysterious sun palm. At the peak of AI Ming Mountain, two suns appeared. The other spirit pulse stage spirit cultivators who were fighting all dodged, while Lung Shichi stared at Jill. Everyone here had to die, but Jill couldn't die. He had to capture him alive. Jill had been ambushed in the first place. The Lung Shichi inky jade sword was still engraved with 63 demonic patterns, and it was currently sweeping over with a violent sword aura. Gil pulled out a pair of strange scimitars and was about to face the enemy, but Lung Shichi's eyes suddenly flashed with colorful light, and Gil's action of pulling out the scimitars suddenly stopped. In less than a breath's time, he woke up, but Lung Shichi's sword was already close to him. Gil barely had enough time to block the attack. As the sword light swept past, the inky jade sword directly shattered the scimitar and even chopped off Gil's entire right arm. Lung Shichi's sword shook, and over 100 invisible invading meridian sword chi shot out, instantly opening numerous wounds on Jill's body. At the same time, over 100 sword chi entered his body and sealed his meridians. Lung Shichi took advantage of the situation and directly knocked Jill unconscious with his palm. Then, he pointed out a finger, and in an instant, blood chi soared into the sky, thunder raged, and a thunderous bloody light shot towards another Zhu Lu country person. That person was currently surrounded by several people and was already struggling. How could he have the energy to block Lung Shichi's Thunderblood Sky finger? A thunderous bloodline flashed, and in the blink of an eye, that person's head exploded. The few people who were attacking were stunned. They had joined forces to attack this person, but they had only injured him. Lung Shichi had actually killed him in an instant. What kind of strength was this? They turned around and saw that even Jill had been subdued by Lung Shichi. They couldn't help but sigh at Lung Shichi's strength. After Lung Shichi killed this person, he didn't care about them anymore. Instead, he rushed towards the 3 spirit pulse realm cultivators of the Xianyang sect. The 3 of them were all direct disciples of Li Xianyang and must die. However, just as he rushed over, he heard a loud explosion. It was Sun Gang and Li Xianyang's sons colliding. The entire AI Ming Mountain was suddenly enveloped by an endless golden and red light, followed by a terrifying wave of spirit energy, causing everyone to retreat. Lung Shichi quietly opened his Byakugan, and in his vision, he instantly discovered that Li Xianyang's strength was about to collapse. Sure enough, after 2 breaths of time, the red sun completely swallowed the golden sun, and Li Xianyang spat out another mouthful of blood. If the 2 of them were at their peak, Li Xianyang would be stronger than Sun Gang, but he was attacked by Sun Gang at close range and was heavily injured. From that moment onwards, Li Xianyang already knew the result. However, when he saw that Jill had been subdued and his 3 disciples were on the verge of death, his eyes immediately widened. Jill had fallen into the hands of others, and that was proof of his betrayal. His Xianyang sect would not be able to escape the fate of being destroyed. As a sect leader, Li Xianyang quickly understood that this was all because of one person, and that was Lung Shichi. He stared at Lung Shichi and said fiercely, You actually weren't controlled by the mind controlling you. You've been pretending all along." Lung Shichi sneered, "That's right. How'd you do it?" Even so, Li Xianyang still found it hard to believe. Lung Shichi said, "The dead don't need to know so much, City Lord Sun." Sun Gang raised his huge fist, and a terrifying aura erupted like a volcano. It seemed like Sun Gang was ready to use his killing move. At this time, Li Xianyang laughed strangely. "Ha! Do you think you could defeat me like this?" As soon as he finished his words, his whole body burst out with a strong bloody light. He actually began to burn all his essence blood. Not only that, but Li Xianyang had also done something completely unexpected. His body moved as fast as a flash of light, and he turned around and rushed down the cliff of AI Ming Mountain. Although AI Ming Mountain was only a small mountain, if he fell down, he would definitely die, even if he was an expert in the late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm. However, Li Xianyang seemed to have other means. He left behind a ruthless sentence. Lung Shichi, Sun Gang, Just you wait. When I break through to Gang's spirit realm, it will be the time of your death." Sun Gang waited and watched Li Xianyang fall down the cliff. He did not dare to jump down, but he knew that he could not get the first Origin 9 aperture crystal. In addition, he had to be careful of Li Xianyang's revenge in the future. In a fit of anger, he killed 3 of Li Xianyang's personal disciples in an instant. The remnant souls of several spiritual pulse realm cultivators benefited Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi knew that Sun Gang was furious. He said, "Don't worry, City Lord Sun. Li Xianyang is seriously injured and has burned his essence blood. He can't run far. I will report this matter later. He will be executed soon. If we can recover the first Origin 9 aperture crystal, we will definitely give it to City Lord Sun." Sun Gang was silent for a moment. Although he was angry, he knew that there was no problem with the arrangement tonight. And from what Li Xianyang said just now, Lung Shiqi had put himself in danger by being poisoned. In other words, except for Li Xianyang jumping off the cliff, everything was in Lung Shiqi's plan. Therefore, Sun Gang had nothing to say. He lowered his voice and said, "Then I will wait for the good news from Lord Lu." With that, he flicked his sleeves and left. As for Lung Shiqi, after he quickly settled everything, he ordered everyone to rush to the vicinity of Xianyang Mountain and wait for orders. He secretly activated the Fate skill. Chapter 333. At the bottom of the cliff of AI Ming Mountain, a person covered in blood was stumbling and running in a sorry state. This person was the sect master of the third-rate Xianyang sect, Li Xianyang. Li Xianyang's clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled. He didn't look like a sect master at all. First, he was ambushed by Sun Gang and defeated. Then he burned his essence blood and used his trump card to escape. However, his eyes were as cold as a beast's and filled with hatred. Hatred that soared to the heavens. He had been tricked by someone else, and that person was only at the mid-stage of the spirit pulse realm. Lu Xingji, what a good Lu Xingji. I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons to relieve my hatred, Li Xianyang said through gritted teeth. But at this moment his body froze. Red, blue, and yellow spirit light suddenly appeared in front of him. Then, a figure bathed in spirit light walked out. This person was wearing a set of ferocious-looking demonic armor, and behind him was a cloak made of silver-white flowing light. His eyes were greenish-white, and there was a strange blood-red mark on his forehead. Moreover, his body was surrounded by purple demonic chi. His aura was comparable to the mid-stage of the spirit aperture realm. This was Lung Shiqi, who had activated the demonic beast blood rune armor, the beast origin battle rune, the white eye, and the demonic fiend blood rune. Lung Shiqi in his strongest state. Li Xianyang looked at the person who suddenly appeared. He didn't say anything because Lung Shiqi's dense killing intent said it all. He was here to kill Li Xianyang. Lung Shiqi's hands formed a seal. Cold chi and hot flames soared into the sky at the same time. Fire and ice tornado. However, this tornado didn't sweep out. Instead, it spread out and enveloped Lung Shiqi and Li Xianyang. The reason he did this was to prevent Li Xianyang from escaping. Li Xianyang's expression was grave. He didn't expect Lung Shiqi to be a difficult spirit caster. But of course, Li Xianyang wasn't going to just sit there and wait for death. Without hesitation, he ignited his blood essence again. Li Xianyang flipped his palm, and a burst of golden light appeared. It stretched for tens of meters, and there were faint traces of red light flashing within it. The golden radiance condensed into a huge palm shadow, which crashed down with a loud bang. Lung Shiqi made a grasping motion in the air, and the gangwood spear appeared in his hand. He let out a low growl, and his whole body exuded an unparalleled aura of death. At the same time, strands of golden light flashed, and the gangwood spear was covered in a layer of golden scales. Lung Shiqi's power burst forth, and his feet rumbled like thunder. His entire body directly rushed towards Li Xianyang's palm shadow. Just as the spirit spear was about to collide with the palm shadow, a dazzling golden cross suddenly flashed in the air, instantly tearing apart the palm shadow. Golden cross spear. Lung Shiqi used Byakugan to see through the flaw in Li Xuanyang's attack and easily neutralized it. Li Xuanyang formed a fist seal with his hands, and golden spirit qi continuously surged. He blasted out with Vajra, suppressing the world. Lung Shiqi, however, pointed a finger at Li Xuanyang, and a crimson beam of light shot out. The thunderclap blood heavenly finger had an extremely strong penetrative power, and it pierced through Li Xuanyang's Vajra fist with a single point. The remaining finger energy continued to shoot toward Li Xuanyang. The golden radiance around Li Xuanyang's body shrank, forming a light golden armor that blocked the remaining thunderclap blood heavenly finger. But at the same time, it also meant that he no longer had the initiative. Lung Shiqi's hands turned into two ghost claws. Demonic qi surged behind him, and a demonic dragon vaguely soared out. The demonic dragon soared into the sky, and two demonic claws tore through the night sky. This was Lung Shiqi's fusion of Ghost Jade Claw, Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw, and Wuxiang's third stage spiritual technique, Dragon Capturing Claw, was the result of this fusion. Li Xuanyang's expression changed drastically. He roared, and the blood-red radiance on his body grew even brighter. His face turned even paler. He raised his palms to the sky. This was the beginning of his signature technique, the Glorious Sun Mystic Sun Palm. Then, a golden sun appeared, suppressing the demonic aura and melting the two demonic dragon claws. However, the golden sun also disappeared. At this time, Lung Shiqi unsheathed his inky jade sword. Hundreds of icy blue sword energy shot out, instantly drowning Li Xuanyang. Li Xuanyang immediately recognized the inky jade sword. He exclaimed, "You're Lu Xingji." The mid-stage spirit vein realm brat he'd always looked down on actually had such terrifying strength. He'd hidden his strength well. Li Xuanyang knew that if this continued, he'd definitely die. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to run. As a result, Li Xuanyang simply stopped blocking the frost sword qi. He allowed the sword qi to hit his spirit armor while he took out a flying knife. This throwing knife was golden all over. Li Xuanyang poured all of his spiritual power and blood energy into it, and it was immediately dyed red. The throwing knife shot out, but it wasn't aimed at Lung Shiqi. Instead, it was aimed at the tornado of ice and fire that surrounded them. The throwing knife was as fast as lightning. It instantly tore a large hole in the tornado of ice and fire. Li Xuanyang turned into a blood-red radiance and shot out. Lung Shiqi didn't panic. He only took a light step forward, and his body appeared 30 meters away. His figure was like a ghost from the netherworld. It looked like he was drifting, but in reality, he was as fast as lightning. This was the combination of Ghost Parade, fluttering steps, and spring stepping flash. It was a body movement that combined both lightness and movement, ghost steps of nether spring. Li Xuanyang burned his essence and blood fast, but Lung Shiqi was faster. He felt that Lung Shiqi was still behind him, and a look of desperation appeared on his face. He knew that with his old body, even if he burned his essence and blood, he couldn't hold on for long. If he kept running like this, he would run out of essence and blood and die first. Instead of dying slowly, it was better to fight desperately. Maybe there was a chance of survival. Li Xuanyang gritted his teeth and took out a palm-sized bright crystal. It was the first Origin 9 Apertures crystal. This was the key to his promotion to Gang Spirit Realm, and he had risked countless dangers to get it. Now he had no time to think about the future. He planned to refine the first Origin 9 Apertures crystal directly. Although it would waste most of its power, it could help him recover a lot of spiritual power in a short time. With enough spiritual power, he naturally had the capital to escape. However, at this moment, Lung Shiqi, who was 30 meters away from him, suddenly flashed a silver light. His figure actually crossed the 30 meters and came to Li Xuanyang in an instant. At this moment, Lung Shiqi was holding the green rain saber. All his spiritual power, qi and blood, devil qi, monster qi, and even his spiritual power and the will to kill Li Xianyang were gathered on the green rain saber. The green rain saber trembled in the scabbard and made sound. After that, a chilly blade light flashed like a white horse, and it vanished in an instant. Li Xuanyang's body was split into two in an instant. Chapter 334. The ephemeral epiphyllum split Li Xianyang in half, but strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out. Li Xianyang had been burning his own essence blood, so there wasn't much blood left in his body. Lung Shiqi's blade that was infused with 9 leaves demonic qi became even more demonic as it was able to absorb Li Xuanyang's blood. However, Lung Shiqi's current state wasn't very good. All of his statuses had disappeared, and his aura was constantly falling. Fortunately, he had absorbed part of Li Xuanyang's remnant soul's power, which could be considered as replenishing some of his spiritual power and blood. Then, he quickly swallowed a few pills to recover his spiritual power and blood, and finally felt a bit better. Just as he was about to wipe the corpse, the first Origin 9 aperture crystal that had fallen to the ground broke in half with a ka sound. It turned out that Lung Shiqi's blade had also broken the first Origin 9 aperture crystal. Lung Shiqi was shocked. This was an extremely precious treasure. It would be a pity to destroy it just like that. However, 9 Leaf shouted, "Silly boy, why aren't you absorbing the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal?" Lung Shiqi focused his eyes and saw that the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was currently overflowing with a large amount of pure and majestic power. He quickly took the first Origin 9 aperture crystal in his hand, and then quickly used his cultivation method to absorb and refine the power. He could immediately feel that the spiritual power in his body had clearly increased by a bit. In just a breath's time, it was equivalent to a day of bitter cultivation. Just how pure was the energy contained in it? No wonder Li Xianyang, a sect leader, wanted it even in his dreams. However, Lung Shiqi secretly felt that it was a pity. This first Origin 9 aperture crystal was a treasure that could only be refined at the late stage of the spirit aperture realm. Even though he had already absorbed it with all his might, a lot of the power was still wasted. At this moment, 9Leaf's voice sounded again. "Lung Shiqi, I can help you collect the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal and not let it overflow. However, I want to absorb 60% of the power." Lung Shiqi only thought for a moment before agreeing. If he had to absorb and refine it himself, he probably wouldn't even be able to absorb 30%. According to 9Leaf, he could absorb 40%, which was already a great profit. Following that, 9Leaf's soul body appeared, her 10 fingers linked together to weave a green cocoon around her. Sure enough, the power emitted by the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was unable to escape the green silkworm cocoon. Next, Lung Shiqi and 9Leaf began to absorb the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Lung Shiqi's aura suddenly surged. 7th level of the spiritual pulse realm. The bottleneck from a 6th level to the 7th level of the spirit pulse realm was not small. Lung Shiqi had been prepared to be stuck at the peak of the 6th level for a long time, but now he had easily broken through. Not only that, but his spiritual power was also increasing at a rapid pace. With the passage of time, Lung Shiqi's cultivation had reached the 8th level of the spiritual pulse realm. He had even reached the peak of the 8th level. As long as he continued, he would be able to break through to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Unfortunately, just as he was about to break through to the 9th level, the power of the first Origin 9 aperture crystal was exhausted. Lung Shiqi sighed slightly, but after thinking about it, it was already a great opportunity for his cultivation to soar from the 6th level to the 8th level overnight. He was satisfied. 9Leaf also absorbed the other power. At this moment, her soul body looked more solid. She looked at Lung Shiqi and said, You didn't break through to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Are you a bit unwilling? Lung Shiqi's thoughts turned quickly. Nine Leaves' words seemed to have a deeper meaning. He nodded and said, "Senior is really insightful." Nine Leaves smiled and said, "I'm in a good mood now, so I can remind you of something for free. Don't forget that there's still a little thing in your heart." Little thing? Hearing this, Lung Shiqi immediately remembered that there was indeed a mind control goo in his body. When Li Xianyang planted the mind control goo in him, he said that this goo worm was equivalent to a rank 6 treasure. Although it was half dead now, it did contain a lot of power. Lung Shiqi had also studied the mind control goo before. In fact, this mind control goo was a parasite in a person's heart. It constantly released illusions to affect the mind and thoughts of the person affected. Lung Shiqi closed his eyes again and began to refine the mind control goo. This time, he used the 5-god flowing light art. In terms of illusions, how could a small goo worm compare to the 5-god flowing light art? Lung Shiqi's body flashed with 5-colored light as he successfully refined the mind control goo without any obstruction. About an hour later, his body was covered in 5-colored light. His cultivation was already at the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. Lung Shiqi opened his eyes. 2 rays of 5-colored light suddenly burst out and then dissipated. He felt the majestic spirit force in his body and couldn't help but feel a bit high-spirited. In one night, his cultivation jumped from the 6th level of the spirit vein stage to the 9th level of the spirit vein stage. This speed was already heaven-defying. However, he quickly suppressed this thought in his heart. There were countless geniuses in the world and countless opportunities. He could encounter them, but others also had their own opportunities. He wouldn't belittle himself, but he definitely wouldn't be arrogant. With this thought, the last trace of excitement and pride in Lung Shiqi's heart disappeared and was replaced with calmness. At the same time, he also understood why many people would be lost in power and would do anything to obtain power. For example, Li Xianyang. Thinking of Li Xianyang, Lung Shiqi walked to his corpse and took his mustard seed bracelet. Not only did this mustard seed bracelet contain a large amount of resources, but the space inside was also several times larger than Lung Shiqi's mustard seed bag. He simply wore the mustard seed bracelet on his wrist. Nine Leaves' soul body glanced at the mustard seed bracelet on his wrist. Lung Shiqi's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. He secretly thought to himself, Nine Leaves wouldn't still be eyeing the resources in the mustard seed bracelet, right? Nine Leaves' eyes turned, and he smiled. Lung Shiqi, do you think Li Xuanyang's palm technique is powerful? Lung Shiqi couldn't guess Nine Leaves' intentions. He said, Li Xuanyang's glorious sun mystic palm is a peak level 5 spiritual technique and his famous consummate technique. It's naturally very powerful. That's right. In fact, this glorious sun mystic palm is just one of the spiritual techniques attached to the golden mystic yang technique. Senior seems to know this technique? Lung Shiqi couldn't help but be a little puzzled. Nine Leaves explained, my cultivation has recovered a lot and my soul power has also increased. After Li Xianyang died, I swallowed a part of his soul and extracted this technique. Lung Shiqi's eyes widened. He seemed to know what Nine Leaves was going to say. Nine Leaves' lips curled into a smile. I can give you the technique, but I want all the resources in this mustard seed bag. Chapter 335. Hearing Nine Leaves' words, Lung Shiqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that Nine Leaves had been eyeing Li Xuanyang's resources. Of course, he wanted Li Xuanyang's cultivation methods and spirit techniques. Although there weren't many cultivation resources in the mustard seed bracelet, they were all top quality. If he could consume these resources, his cultivation and strength would rise to another level. However, these resources were still inferior to Li Xuanyang's golden mystic yang art and more than one rank 5 spirit technique. After all, cultivation methods and spirit techniques were the foundation of a spirit cultivator. Lung Shiqi gritted his teeth and said, Okay. Nine Leaves chuckled and wrote the golden mystic yang art's mantra in the air. Then, she asked Lung Shiqi to release her body. Lung Shiqi did as he was told and poured out all the resources in the mustard seed bracelet. 9 Leaves' soul and body became one. She opened her mouth and swallowed all the resources like a whale swallowing mountains and rivers. And not bad. 9 Leaf nodded in satisfaction and said, "Okay, Li Xianyang is dead. Destroying the profound Yang sect shouldn't be difficult for you. I'll go out for a walk. After a while, I'll come and find you for the remaining resources." Lung Shiqi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He didn't expect 9 Leaf to be so confident in him destroying the profound Yang sect. Then, without waiting for Lung Shiqi's reply, 9 Leaf turned into a purple light and disappeared into the night. However, Lung Shiqi had a feeling that 9 Leaf would cause trouble sooner or later. "AI, forget it. Let's not care about her." Lung Shiqi shook his head slightly. Then he used the ghost spring steps and rushed to Mist City. While rushing, he was thinking about how to destroy the profound Yang sect. Currently, the profound Yang sect still had Li Feizhou, the Spirit Aperture Realm Great Elder. In addition, he also had 4 Spirit Pulse Realm Direct Disciples. These 5 people were the biggest threat. In addition, there were more than 30 Spirit Transformation Realm and 1 to 200 Spirit Assembly Realm and Pure Spirit Realm Disciples. These people were nothing to be afraid of, but there were so many of them that they might run away. If he didn't remove the roots, there would be endless trouble in the future. Therefore, Lung Shiqi had 2 urgent matters to solve. First, who would deal with Li Feizhou? Regarding this point, Lung Shiqi's original plan was to ask Sun Gang to make a move. He had used the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal as a reward to get Sun Gang to attack Li Xianyang. According to the original plan, he had not intended to keep the first Origin 9 Aperture Crystal for himself. He really intended to give it to Sun Gang. So he'd ask Sun Gang to deal with Li Feizhou, Sun to deal with him. After all, Li Tu's to make to S to him to do. To Lung Shiqi's Tu's to, that was to B's to Li Sun. Now, Lung Shiqi had 2 choices. He could either mobilize the silver-striped Blood Cloak assassins from the Blood Cloak Pavilion, or he could fight Li Feizhou himself. If Lung Shiqi wanted to assassinate Xianyang sect secretly, it would be best to hire the silver-striped Blood-Red Cloak assassins. After all, that was what they were best at. However, Lung Shiqi wanted to wipe out Xianyang sect openly. Only by doing so could he make the most contribution and spread his name far and wide. Therefore, he could only do it himself. Now that Lung Shiqi's cultivation had climbed to the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse Realm, if he were to activate all his powers, he would indeed have the strength of an early-stage Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator. However, he only had strength and didn't have the characteristics of a Spirit Aperture Realm cultivator. Therefore, if he wanted to fight Li Feizhou, he had to weaken Li Feizhou's strength before that. Moreover, he didn't need to kill Li Feizhou. As long as he could delay him, his subordinates would quickly kill the other disciples of Xianyang sect, and then surround Li Feizhou. As for Li Feizhou, he temporarily thought of this. There was another problem if he wanted to destroy Xianyang sect, and that was to have a large amount of manpower. He had around 80 Dark Lightning guards under him, and all of them were at the Spirit Transformation Realm. They were the elites of the elites. Killing the disciples of Xianyang sect wasn't a problem, but their weakness was obvious. They didn't have a lot of people. Even with the dozens of reserve members in Dark Lightning Manor, they only had around 100 people. It was still far from enough to completely destroy Xianyang sect. As for the 6 great families, there were around 60 people in total, which was barely enough. However, in order to be absolutely sure, Lung Shiqi decided to look for someone. It was someone he had met once before, and that was the deputy commander of Lanqi City City Guards, Ning Xiu. The commander of the city guards, Su Ji, had been missing for a few days, and Sun Gang had secretly come to AI Ming Mountain under the pretext of investigating. Now, all of Lanqi City's affairs were managed by Ning Xiu, and he could be said to be proud of himself. Lung Shiqi guessed that Sun Gang would definitely put on a show and wouldn't return to Lan Chi City for the next 2 days. He wanted to persuade Ning Xiu to send a portion of the city guards to assist him in attacking Xianyang's sect before Sun Gang returned. Thus, he hurried through the night and finally returned to Lan Chi City at noon the next day. He had been using the Netherworld Ghost Steps to hasten his journey. Even though he was at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, he still couldn't take it. First, he confirmed that Ning Xiu was indeed in the City Lord's manor. Then, he rested for a while before going to look for Ning Xiu. When Ning Xiu found out that Lung Shiqi, the supervisor of Dark Lightning Manor, was looking for him, he was a little surprised. However, in terms of status, Lung Shiqi was 1 level higher than him, so he had to treat Lung Shiqi warmly. However, Lung Shiqi didn't have time to pretend with him. He directly took out the supervisor's token and ordered, "I want to destroy Xianyang's sect, which colluded with other countries and committed a heinous crime. Now, I need the City Lord's manor to mobilize the city guards to assist me." Lung Shiqi's short sentence set off a huge wave in Ning Xiu's heart. Did he hear wrongly? Destroy the third-rate Xianyang sect. However, when he saw Lung Shiqi's supervisor's token, he couldn't say a word. According to the rules of the Thunderflame dynasty, the Dark Lightning Guards could indeed mobilize the city guards in an emergency. However, this kind of thing had to be decided by the city lord himself. However, Sun Gang wasn't here, so he didn't dare to make this decision. Lung Shiqi saw that Ning Xiu was hesitating and immediately snorted, "Humph. Is Deputy Commander Ning going to defy my order?" Ning Xiu shook his head repeatedly. "Lord Liu, this is a serious matter. City Lord Sun isn't in the city right now, so I really can't make this decision." "How dare you?" Lung Shiqi shouted angrily. "The Xianyang sect's traitors could escape at any time. If Deputy Commander Ning is unwilling to cooperate with me and the traitors escape, can you bear this kind of crime?" Ning Xiu immediately trembled. Of course, he couldn't bear it. However, mobilizing the city guards was a serious matter. If something happened, he couldn't escape punishment. He was in a dilemma. Ning Xiu wished that Sun Gang and Su Ji were both here. That way, he wouldn't have to bear this kind of heavy responsibility. However, Lung Shiqi's tone calmed down. "Deputy Commander Ning, I'm not here to make things difficult for you. I'm here to give you credit. Don't worry, the Xianyang sect is like a turtle in a jar. As long as Deputy Commander Ning is willing to transfer 200 city guards to me, I can guarantee that everyone will return in one piece and will give Deputy Commander Ning a great credit. I heard that Commander Su Ji has been missing for a few days. Don't you want to remove the word deputy? You should know that I'm also a spiritual pulse realm cultivator. Commander Ning is also qualified to be a supervisor." He even emphasized the words Commander Ning. In addition, he unknowingly used an illusion to affect part of Ning Xiu's mind. When Ning Xiu heard the words Commander Ning from Lung Shiqi, his heart was filled with hot blood. He gritted his teeth and didn't hesitate any longer. He said, "This subordinate obeys." Chapter 336. One day later, at the entrance of Profound Sun Sect. At this moment, the 2 doormen of Pure Spirit Realm were standing there in boredom. They were still chatting with each other. However, all of a sudden, a figure covered in blood staggered over. "Who is it?" The 2 doormen immediately shouted. When they saw the person's face, they exclaimed, "Elder Chong." It turned out that this person was Li Xuanyang's eldest direct disciple, Elder Chong Wei of Profound Sun Sect. While running, Chong Wei panted and shouted, "Quick, take me to Master Uncle Li. I have an urgent matter to report." The 2 doormen immediately panicked. Chong Wei was usually a high-ranking person in Profound Sun Sect. Now that he was in such a state, something terrible must have happened. Between the 2 of them, the older one came back to his senses first. He supported Chong Wei and walked quickly. The other doorman frowned and continued to guard the mountain gate. Not long after Chong Wei went up the mountain, another 10 people came to the entrance. These 10 people all had powerful auras. They were all in the spiritual pulse realm. Although the doorman could not see their cultivation, he often came in contact with spiritual pulse realm cultivators. He could roughly tell that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. Thus, he became even more nervous. What could happen when 10 spiritual pulse realm cultivators came to Profound Sun Sect? When he thought of Elder Chang's miserable state, he had a bad premonition. Just as the doorman was about to ask, one of them suddenly pointed at the doorman. A yellow finger energy directly pierced through the doorman's head. The doorman's body fell to the ground. Even in death, he did not understand why they suddenly killed him. And the person who killed him was Qiu Cheng. The other 9 people were naturally Qiao Qian, Peng Yuan, the people from the 6 great clans, and the vice commander of the city guards, Ning Xiu. Behind them, there were 80 dark lightning guards, 60 disciples of the great clans, and 200 city guards. With such a lineup, it was more than enough to destroy a half-crippled Profound Sun Sect. But there was still a huge threat in Profound Sun Sect, and that was the great elderly Feizhou. At this moment, Li Feizhou was meeting with Chang Wei. When he saw Chang Wei's terrible injuries, he knew that something bad had happened. Of course, he knew that Li Xianyang had brought a few direct disciples and spirit transformation realm disciples down the mountain. He also guessed what Li Xianyang was going to do, but he was powerless to stop him. Thus, he could only pray that Li Xianyang would return safely. But 2 days had passed. There was no news of Li Xianyang's group. Li Feizhou knew that there must have been an accident. However, he didn't know where Li Xianyang and the others had gone. All he could do was stay in the Profound Yang sect. Chang Wei's Li Feizhou, Li Feizhou, Li Feizhou. However, Li Feizhou was far more cautious than Li Xianyang. He helped Chang Wei over and transferred some of his spiritual energy to him. In this way, not only could he help Chang Wei recover some of his Yuan Qi, he could also find out if Chang Wei was real or fake. Li Feizhou quickly sensed that the cultivation method in Chang Wei's body was the golden mystic yang skill, so he dispelled the vigilance in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "What about senior brother sect leader? What the hell is going on?" "Martial uncle, it's not good, it's not good," Chang Wei said with a panicked expression, but he glanced at the people around him. Li Feizhou waved his hand, and those people left on their own accord. Chang Wei then said, "Martial uncle, the night before yesterday, we followed Master to AI Ming Mountain to trade with the people of Zhulu country. At first, it was very smooth, but who knew?" Chang Wei's words made Li Feizhou very uncomfortable. He panicked. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" "Who knows?" Chang Wei didn't finish his sentence. Demonic energy surged around him, and a set of black demonic armor appeared. A few blood marks appeared on his forehead. At the same time, the azure rain saber was unsheathed, and an extremely condensed saber light flashed across. This saber looked very ordinary, but in this world, it was as if it was the only thing that existed. Everything else was destroyed. Li Feizhou would never have guessed that his martial nephew Chang would actually attack him. Facing this blade that seemed to cut through space, Li Feizhou couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly used his spiritual armor to resist. However, the spiritual armor was easily torn apart by the blade, as if it was made of paper. Li Feizhou hurriedly put his hands in front of him. In an instant, a golden light flashed and a 5-foot large palm print appeared. Unfortunately, the palm print was torn in half by the blade before it could fully condense. However, the power of the blade was greatly reduced. In the end, the blade landed on Li Feizhou's body. His skin and flesh were torn apart, and his meridians were broken. Just as the blade was about to shatter his internal organs, a majestic demonic energy burst out from his body. A ferocious headless demon suddenly appeared and blocked the fatal blow for him. But even so, Li Feizhou was seriously injured. Chang Wei sneered. He, elderly of Xianyang sect, is actually secretly cultivating demonic arts. If this matter were to spread, Xianyang sect's reputation would be ruined. Li Feizhou looked at Chang Wei in front of him. He was shocked and angry, but also very puzzled. He secretly tested the other party just now. Chang Wei's cultivation technique was clearly the golden mystic yang technique. The appearance and injuries could be faked, but how could the cultivation technique be faked? Unfortunately, what he didn't know was that Lung Shiqi had used the system to cultivate the golden mystic yang technique in an instant. And the only way he could think of to delay Li Feizhou was to use the same trick again. He had cultivated the bone transformation technique and used this technique to change his body shape to be exactly the same as Chang Wei's. With the help of 1,000 faces, he changed his appearance so that he could deceive all eyes. Only then could he seriously injure Li Feizhou. Now that Lung Shiqi's cultivation had increased greatly, using the flash in the pan technique would no longer make him collapse, but still consumed more than 60% of his spiritual energy. Moreover, he could no longer maintain the demonic beast blood tattoo armor and demonic fiend blood tattoo. It could be said that his battle strength was greatly reduced. Even though Li Feizhou was seriously injured, he was still an expert in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. The current situation was still unfavorable for Lung Shiqi. However, Lung Shiqi wasn't worried. His task was to delay Lung Shiqi. Li Feizhou also saw this point and immediately shouted, "Men!" However, after a few breaths, no one came in. At the same time, there were sounds of fighting outside. Li Feizhou's heart sank. Lung Shiqi coldly said, "Li Feizhou, the Dark Thunder Guards and City Guards have already surrounded Xianyang sect. Xianyang sect will no longer exist from now on." You. Li Feizhou's eyes instantly turned crimson red. His body involuntarily emitted demonic qi. Xianyang sect was his life's work. Seeing that it was about to collapse, he seemed to be going crazy. Li Feizhou roared. Demonic qi surged out of his body and condensed into headless ghosts. Lung Shiqi didn't use any spiritual techniques. Instead, 5 light golden needles appeared in his hand. Chapter 337. These 5 golden needles were the golden thread demon needles that Lung Shiqi obtained from Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators. Lung Shiqi flicked his fingers and the 5 golden needles shot out. Although Li Feizhou was mad, he was still rational. He felt the thread of the golden needles and quickly ordered a few headless ghosts to intercept the golden needles. Unfortunately, the golden needles were treasures that could restrain ghosts. They pierced through the headless ghosts and nailed onto Li Feizhou's body. Immediately after, golden runes appeared and circulated around Li Feizhou's body, completely sealing all of his demonic qi. The golden thread demon needles could easily seal the 1,000-year-old black fiend demonic corpse, not to mention Li Feizhou, a half-baked demonic cultivator. With his demonic qi sealed, Li Feizhou was immediately devoured by the demonic qi ghosts. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood with his internal organs as his aura plummeted. Li Feizhou looked at Lung Shiqi in shock. He would never have thought that Lung Shiqi was also surrounded by demonic qi. He was obviously a demonic cultivator. But this demonic cultivator actually had a treasure that could restrain demonic qi. What made him even more shocked was that Lung Shiqi had also removed his disguise. Li Feizhou immediately recognized him. Supervisor of Dark Thunder Hall, Lu. Okay, got it. Li Feizhou gritted his teeth and spat out the words. That's right. Lung Shiqi said calmly and started chatting with Li Feizhou. His purpose here was to stall Li Feizhou, not to fight to the death with him. Even though Li Feizhou was injured, he was still an expert in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. Moreover, as the great elder of the profound Yang sect, no one would believe that he didn't have anything on him. So, since Li Feizhou wanted to chat with him, Lung Shiqi was naturally very willing to do so. The longer this dragged on, the more disciples of the profound Yang sect would die. As long as those people were all dead, he would be able to receive reinforcements. Lung Shiqi continued, Li Feizhou, give up. Li Xianyang is dead, and the Xianyang sect will cease to exist. If you surrender, I can let you leave with a few good seedlings. It can be considered as leaving behind some descendants. Ha ha! Li Feizhou laughed. Lu Xingji, who would believe your words? I have nothing to say about falling into your hands. I can only blame Senior Brother Sect Leader for being greedy. But you want me to surrender? Don't even think about it. Lung Shiqi just shook his head. He raised his hand, and cold air and raging flames swept out and enveloped Li Feizhou. Of course, Lung Shiqi did not expect the fire and ice tornado to kill Li Feizhou. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a strange evil aura appeared, condensing into a terrifying evil aura in mid-air. Ghost shadows shrieked, and waves of evil aura surged out and covered Li Feizhou. In an instant, several kinds of negative emotions surged into his mind, and the evil aura also continuously corroded his broken body. Xietian Wailing Curse. Under the combined attack of the fire and ice tornado and the Xietian Wailing Curse, Li Feizhou could not resist at all. He could only struggle with the golden light. At the same time, his aura continued to decrease. Lung Shiqi was cautious, so he did not dare to rush forward. He was not in a rush, so he continued to use spells to wear down Li Feizhou's strength. Not long after, the sounds outside gradually decreased, and then 3 people walked in. It was Qiu Cheng, Xiao Qian, and Peng Yuan. They were covered in blood and filled with killing intent. Seeing them walk in, Lung Shiqi knew that there was no suspense in the battle outside. Xiao Qian cupped his hands and said, "Sir, Li Feizhou's 4 direct disciples and all the disciples in the spirit transformation realm have been killed. There are only a few low-level disciples that are being eliminated." Pooh! When Li Feizhou heard this, he was so anxious that he spat out another mouthful of blood. A look of despair appeared in his eyes. He muttered, "Dead, the profound Yang sect is dead." When Xiao Qian and the other 2 saw Li Feizhou's miserable state, their faces were filled with shock. Li Feizhou was a spirit cultivator at the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm, yet he was defeated by Lung Shiqi. At first, when Lung Shiqi said that he had a way to deal with Li Feizhou, they did not believe him. Now that they saw the truth, they had no choice but to believe him. At the same time, they were shocked by the speed of Lung Shiqi's strength. When they first met Lung Shiqi, he was only at the 5th level of the spirit pulse realm. In less than 2 months, his cultivation had soared to the 9th level of the spirit pulse realm. His strength had also become even more terrifying. When Lung Shiqi was at the spirit pulse realm middle stage, he was able to kill spirit pulse late stage cultivators. Now that he was at the 9th level of the spirit pulse realm, he was able to defeat spirit aperture realm middle stage cultivators. This kind of terrifying speed of improvement was simply shocking. Of course, Lung Shiqi was able to defeat Li Feizhou because of luck. First, he launched a sneak attack, which greatly reduced Li Feizhou's strength. Then, he coincidentally used the golden thread demon needles to restrain Li Feizhou's demonic arts, resulting in the current situation. If it was a direct confrontation, Lung Shiqi believed that he would be able to hold on for a while. Therefore, Lung Shiqi did not care about their shocked expressions and said to Li Feizhou, "Xianyang sect has already been destroyed. Why are you still holding on?" Li Feizhou sighed deeply. This is fate. Xianyang sect will face this sooner or later. Whatever, you guys can do it. After Li Feizhou finished speaking, he closed his eyes. His body no longer flickered with golden light, as if he was waiting for death. Lung Shiqi gave a signal with his eyes. Peng Yuan and the other 2 carefully approached. Even if Li Feizhou said so, they did not dare to be careless. Qiu Cheng pointed, Xiao Qian stabbed, and Peng Yuan's blade fell. The 3 spirit pulse realm cultivators all used their strongest spiritual techniques to attack Li Feizhou, who was waiting for death. Just as the 3 spiritual techniques were about to hit him, Li Feizhou suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with boundless hatred. "Die!" he roared, and his head flew into the air on its own. Blood spurted out from his neck like a fountain. The blood condensed into the body of a headless ghost, and Li Feizhou's head fused with the ghost, turning into a half-human, half-ghost existence. Li Feizhou's sudden change instantly sent Xiao Qian and the other 2 flying. Then, He directly charged towards Lung Shiqi. "Not good," Pang Yuan shouted and immediately rushed over. Lung Shiqi did not move. His hands formed the grasping flower seal, and his body emitted a faint golden light. At the same time, a silver-white brilliance filled with holy power suddenly lit up behind him, weaving into a cloak. Before Li Feizhou could get close to Lung Shiqi, half of his body was vaporized by the holy power and holy light. Lung Shiqi's ink jade sword came out of its sheath, and then his body disappeared. Li Feizhou was stunned for a moment. Then he saw colorful glazed flower petals falling from the sky. Just as Lung Shiqi was puzzled, the flowers suddenly shot out countless sword qi. Then hundreds of Lung Shiqi appeared out of thin air. He waved his sword qi and formed a sword net to attack Jiang Chun. Chaotic flower, dazzling eyes. The boundless sword qi and the violent sword net cut Li Feizhou into pieces in the blink of an eye. Strangely, Li Feizhou was not completely dead. He unwillingly roared, "No!" At this moment, Pang Yuan charged over. Li Feizhou used the last bit of strength to charge at Pang Yuan. Pang Yuan was caught off guard and was hit by Li Feizhou. His body flew out, and he spat out blood. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Li Feizhou's blood-red body finally dissipated, and there was no longer any signs of life. However, Lung Shiqi's face was pale. Originally, after using Flash of the Night and several spirit techniques, he did not have much spirit energy left. Now that he had forcefully used chaotic flower dazzling eyes, his spirit energy was slightly overdrawn. Fortunately, he absorbed Li Feizhou's remnant soul and recovered some. Then, he took Li Feizhou's mustard seed bag and walked out of the hall. Xiao Qian and Xiao Cheng supported the dying Pang Yuan and followed behind him. Outside, the entire Xianyang sect was stained with blood. Everywhere was filled with the smell of blood. Looking around, there was not a single Xianyang sect disciple left. A dignified spirit cultivator sect, the Profound Yang sect, was actually completely destroyed by Lung Shiqi. Chapter 338. The news of the destruction of the third-rate sect, Profound Yang sect, caused an uproar in the North region and even the entire West Desolate province. The West Desolate province was an important place at the border. The spirit cultivator sects there had always been under the control of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Thus, the spirit cultivator sects in the West Desolate province had always been very obedient. Not to mention the massacre of a sect, there hadn't even been any major conflicts. However, the Profound Yang sect was actually destroyed. The reason was even more shocking. The Profound Yang sect actually dared to collude with the Zhu Lu country to smuggle refined iron. In the border region, the Profound Yang sect dared to play such a trick. They were truly audacious. They deserved such an outcome. What was even more shocking was that the person who destroyed the Profound Yang sect was merely a supervisor from the Dark Thunder Manor in the Mist-Chi City, a Spirit Pulse Realm supervisor. This was the first time they had heard of a Spirit Pulse Realm supervisor. However, this person used some unknown method to destroy the Profound Yang sect that had 2 Spirit Aperture Realm experts. Once this matter was out, all the powers in the West Desolate province, including the Spirit Cultivator sects, the Discipline Commission, the Dark Thunder Guards, and the various city lord residences all remembered the name of this supervisor. Lu Xingji. As the instigator of this matter, Lung Shiqi had already brought his subordinates back to the Mist-Chi City with dozens of carriages. Those carriages were naturally filled with the cultivation resources of the Profound Yang sect. Although they also had many mustard seed bags, these resources were all reserved for distribution. Of course, it was better to keep an eye on them. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if someone were to fill their own pockets. At this time, hundreds of large boxes filled the entire courtyard of the Dark Thunder Manor. Not long after, another group of people carried dozens of boxes in. The leader was Lung Shiqi, and these boxes were plundered from the Du family. Before the news of the profound Yang sect's destruction spread, Lung Shiqi had already gone to destroy the Du family. Furthermore, he had also sent people to the surrounding cities to eradicate the families that were involved in the smuggling of refined iron. Presumably, a large amount of resources would be sent over soon. When Lung Shiqi walked into the courtyard, his eyes lit up when he saw the countless cultivation resources before him. There is no need to even mention Qiu Cheng, Xiao Qian, and the Dark Thunder Guards. They had probably never seen so many resources in their entire lives, but now it was right in front of them, waving at them. Many people were even drooling all over the floor, but no one dared to touch it. They knew that before Lung Shiqi spoke, whoever dared to touch it would die. Lung Shiqi clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. Although we've eliminated Xianyang sect and gotten rid of a threat for dynasty, we've also lost a dark lightning envoy. Lung Shiqi was talking about Pang Yuan, who had been seriously injured by Li Feizhou before he died. On their way back, Pang Yuan had already died. The reason why Lung Shiqi had Thousand Face replace Pang Yuan was to appease his subordinates and eliminate dissidents. Now that he had secured his position as a supervisor, Pang Yuan's existence was no longer as important. Moreover, no matter how well Thousand Face disguised himself, there would still be some flaws, especially when he could not fully unleash his true strength. Therefore, Lung Shiqi took this opportunity to release Thousand Face. When everyone heard Lung Shiqi mention Pang Yuan, they lowered their heads silently. Although Pang Yuan was usually a little hot-tempered, he was generous and forthright. Everyone trusted him. Now that he had died in Li Feizhou's hands, everyone was a little sad. However, Lung Shiqi's next words dispelled all their sadness. He said, "It's because of people like Pang Yuan who aren't afraid of death that we were able to destroy the Xianyang sect so easily and obtain such abundant cultivation resources." When they heard about cultivation resources, everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. Lung Shiqi said, "Among these resources, 20% will be mine and 20% will be yours." Hiss, 20%. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Lung Shiqi to be so generous. 20% may sound like a small amount, but there were hundreds of boxes here. If they counted carefully, each of them could carry 2 or 3 boxes home. These resources were far more valuable than their combined monthly salaries for several years. "Thank you for the reward, sir," everyone shouted in unison. Lung Shiqi waved his hand and said, "This is what you deserve. As long as you are loyal to me, there will be more of these things in the future. Take out 10% of the resources and give it to the 6 great families and the City Lord's mansion." 10% for the 6 great families and the City Lord's mansion was not a lot. Although the 6 great families had already sided with him, they were just like the Dark Lightning Guards. If you give them some benefits, they will support you even more. As for the City Lord's mansion, the City Lord Sun Gang was called over by him. Lung Shiqi took advantage of Sun Gang's absence to transfer the city guards away. The 5% of the resources was a small token of his sincerity. The last 50% will be sealed in the treasury. Yes. After Lung Shiqi arranged everything, he began to choose the resources he needed. For the current Lung Shiqi, there were 2 things that he needed the most. First, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. Needless to say, spiritual techniques were Lung Shiqi's foundation. Cultivation methods were also very important. This was because Lung Shiqi was now at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse Realm. Although this was the last level of the Spirit Pulse Realm, it was just the beginning for him. He had already opened 10 Spirit Pulses in his body, but his goal was to open all 72 Spirit Pulses. However, the cultivation techniques he currently possessed, including the Heaven Fiend 9 Underworld's Demonic Beast Blood Devouring Record, the 5 Gods Flowing Light Technique, the 1,000 Revolutions Illusory World Technique, the Amorphous Truth, and the Golden Mystic Yang Technique added up to only 42 spirit veins. This was because these cultivation methods also had spirit pulses in common. Therefore, Lung Shiqi needed more cultivation methods of rank 4 and above to open more spirit pulses. Unfortunately, the resources of the Xianyang sect and Du family only had some low-level cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. As for the high-level ones, they were probably hidden in the minds of Du Hechang, Li Xianyang, and Li Feizhou. Other than cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, Lung Shiqi also needed to prepare for his breakthrough to the Spirit Aperture realm. Breaking through from the Spirit Pulse realm to the Spirit Aperture realm required two things at the same time. One was to condense the liquid spirit energy in the body into a spirit spiral, and the other was to open one of the 360 spirit apertures in the body. The best way to do this was to take the spirit spiral pill and the awakening pill. However, these two pills were not only expensive, they were also priceless. Under normal circumstances, even if you had the money, you wouldn't be able to buy them. Coincidentally, among the resources of the Xianyang sect, there were 3 spirit spiral pills and 1 awakening pill. Lung Shiqi naturally took them without hesitation. As for the rest, he chose some high-level body refining resources and materials. He waved his hand and used the mustard seed bracelet to store the 20% of the resources that belonged to him, filling the mustard seed bracelet to the brim. Fortunately, he changed to a higher-level mustard seed bracelet. Otherwise, he would have to use several mustard seed bags to store them. After everyone was done distributing the resources, Lung Shiqi returned to his room. The first thing he did was to sell 80% of the items in the mustard seed bracelet to the system. His system coins directly soared to 6,382 points. Lung Shiqi looked at the sky-high price of system coins and was moved. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to do 5 unlimited draws. He left over 1,000 system coins just in case he needed them. After all, the system store refreshed every day. If something he wanted appeared, but he couldn't afford it, then he would lose out. Then he opened the lottery page and pressed the unlimited draw button. Chapter 339. Congratulations to the host for winning the beginner prize, Melting Iron Rod. Lung Shiqi's face darkened when he saw the notification. This was the first time he had won a beginner prize in the infinite draw. He had wasted 990 system coins. Lung Shiqi wiped his face as if he wanted to make it look whiter. He then clicked on the infinite draw again. Congratulations to the host for winning the intermediate prize, Xiaoyang Sword Qi. Lung Shiqi's face finally looked better. Although the intermediate prize was a loss, it was still better than the beginner prize. Moreover, this spiritual technique was quite useful. Xiaoyang Sword Qi was a level 4 spiritual technique. When the Sword Qi was released, it was as sharp as the rising sun. When the Sword Qi entered the body, it would burn the meridians. It was a very good spiritual technique. Lung Shiqi originally had channel unblocking Sword Qi and Frost Sword Qi. However, as his cultivation level increased, the power of these two Sword Qi could no longer keep up. For example, when he went to kill Li Xianyang, even if he released hundreds of Frost Sword Qi, it could not cause any fatal damage. Instead, Li Xianyang found a chance to escape. This Xiaoyang Sword Qi made up for it. However, it was still a loss. Lung Shiqi's face darkened. He had already won the beginner and intermediate prizes consecutively. It was equivalent to about 1,900 system coins going down the drain. At this time, he already regretted it. It was not as good as 20 intermediate draws. However, the infinite draw was like this. There was no upper or lower limit. Of course, it was impossible to win every time. Since Lung Shiqi had already decided to do the infinite draw, he would not change his mind easily. Therefore, he clicked on the infinite draw again. Congratulations to the host for winning the top prize, Enyang Spirit Gathering Formation. Top prize. Lung Shiqi first wondered if he had seen wrongly. Then, with a flash of light, he saw a set of formation plates and formation flags appear in front of him. This was actually a mobile array formation. Lung Shiqi quickly read through the method of using the Yin and Yang Spirit Gathering Formation. Even though he had a strong will, He could not help but breathe heavily. The yin-yang spirit convergence array, as its name implied, was a type of spirit convergence array. Its most powerful aspect was its domineering nature. The tyrannical plundering of all the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity could greatly increase the speed of cultivation. However, the cost of using the yin and yang spirit gathering formation was also very high. In order to activate the yin and yang spirit gathering array, the minimum requirement was 500 spirit stones. Moreover, 500 spirit stones were only enough to maintain the array for 2 hours. The more spirit stones he put in, the better the effect. How was this spirit gathering? This was clearly wealth gathering. However, he still had to try it out to see how effective it would be. Then, he formed a spiritual seal with his hands, and the yin-yang spirit gathering formations, formation disc, and formation flags scattered in all directions and hid them underground. Immediately, with the lung shi-chi as the center, an extremely complex array appeared in a radius of several feet. At the outermost periphery of the array, there were densely packed grooves. Lung shi-chi waved his hand, and 500 spirit stones flew out and landed on top of the grooves. Then, the yin and yang spirit gathering formation suddenly bloomed with a dazzling purple-blue brilliance. Lung shi-chi only heard a muffled roar in his ears. Then, the array began to madly devour the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity like a black hole. Lung shi-chi felt that the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surroundings had indeed become much denser and denser. In the blink of an eye, it had become 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. The heaven and earth spiritual qi in the room had become 10 times denser before it stopped increasing. Lung shi-chi secretly took a deep breath. He only needed to cultivate in this environment for 2 hours, and it was almost equivalent to a day and a night of cultivation. 500 spirit stones was definitely not a loss. Spirit stones could still provide a considerable amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi for spirit cultivators below the 4th level of the heaven realm. However, after reaching the 4th level of the heaven realm, the effect of ordinary spirit stones would be greatly reduced. Therefore, for Lung shi-chi, ordinary spirit stones were only used as currency. Now, he could use the yin and yang spirit gathering formation to convert these useless spirit stones into real spiritual qi. It could be said that he had another way to quickly increase his cultivation. However, this method was really too expensive. Now, Lung shi-chi had plundered a lot of spirit stones from several families and the profound Yang sect, but there were not many in his hands. Especially when he was choosing cultivation resources previously, he did not take too many spirit stones. Now, he only had about 7,000 spirit stones in total. This number was considered a lot for a spirit cultivator in the late stage of the spirit pulse realm. However, if he wanted to continue using the yin and yang spirit gathering formation, it was far from enough. More than 7,000 spirit stones were only enough to last for a dozen hours. Lung shi-chi pondered. After the families in the other cities who smuggled iron were destroyed, he would have to take more spirit stones. Next, he cultivated in the yin and yang spirit gathering array for 2 hours. He was fascinated by the feeling of his spiritual power increasing. After finishing his cultivation, Lung shi-chi put the yin and yang spirit gathering formation into the system space. It was really convenient to carry this thing around. After putting away the formation, he opened the lottery page again. He still reserved 2 unlimited lottery chances. When he opened the unlimited lottery again, a stream of light flashed and a card appeared in his hand. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advance prize, Card Faceless Manipulator. The advance prize was not very profitable, but at least it was not a loss. Lung shi-chi looked at the introduction of the card again. Card Faceless Manipulator. Choose a non-human unit and become its clone. When Lung shi-chi saw this description, his first reaction was that it was different from what he remembered. Then, he immediately thought of a person, or rather a monster, 9 Leave. According to the description of this card, He could use it to clone another 9-leaf and directly create a big monster. However, the clone 9-leaf would probably have no self-awareness like Purple Feather. Even so, it would still be a big monster. Just thinking about it made Lung Shiqi feel a little excited. He also began to miss 9-leaf a little. Lung Shiqi pondered for a moment. It was best to wait for 9-leaf cultivation to recover before using this card. Only then would he be able to unleash its full potential. So he stored it in the system space. In the end, he struck while the iron was hot and clicked on the unlimited lottery. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures. When Lung Shiqi saw the advanced prize for the first time, he was delighted. However, when he saw that the prize was 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures, he was a little stunned. And the system really gave him 9 scrolls of Buddhist scriptures. Maha Prajna, Mystic Dharma Lotus Sutra, Vidyalaya Sutra, Vajra Prajnapamitha Sutra, Amitabha Sutra. These Buddhist scriptures were said to be 9 scrolls, but there was a big pile in front of him. Lung Shiqi flipped through the Buddhist scriptures one by one. After a while, he could not help but feel puzzled. These were indeed genuine Buddhist scriptures, but they did not contain any cultivation methods or spiritual skills. They looked like very normal Buddhist scriptures. But why were these things classified as advanced prizes? Chapter 341. Lung Shiqi couldn't help but be stunned when he suddenly heard that he was going to Zhu Lu country. His thoughts turned quickly as doubts arose in his heart. It was true that the Dark Lightning Guards monitored the entire Thunderfire dynasty, but how could they control Zhu Lu country? He had indeed caught evidence of Zhu Lu country secretly transporting refined iron. Not only did he have a large amount of refined iron as evidence, but he also had Jill as a witness. It could be said that he had caught both the man and the goods. However, even if they were going to negotiate with Zhu Lu country, it shouldn't be the Dark Lightning Guard's turn. There were hundreds of court officials above and the border army outside. How could they let the Dark Lightning Guards go to Zhu Lu country to investigate? Yu Ruifeng seemed to have seen through Lung Shiqi's doubts. He said, "The reason why this matter fell on us is because the dynasty doesn't want to fall out with Zhu Lu country. After all, both sides are still allies on the surface. Although Zhu Lu country is only a small country and its territory isn't even as big as the West Desolate Province, it is still a country in the end. According to the division of forces, it is still 30% stronger than the top forces. Now that the Thunderfire dynasty isn't stable internally, it's not good to have any more incidents. That's why this task was given to the Dark Lightning Guards. However, it will be some time before the Imperial Order is issued. You just have to wait in Lan Chi City. I will send someone to inform you when the time comes." Lung Shiqi finally understood. This time, Zhu Lu country's smuggling of refined iron was a big matter. However, the Thunderfire dynasty didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so they just let them go through the motions. Of course, they would definitely be able to reap some benefits from this trip, so he was willing to make a trip. At the same time, Lung Shiqi also received a message from Yu Ruifeng's words. The Thunderfire dynasty wasn't peaceful internally. However, he didn't care too much. As the saying went, the emperor was far away. He was now at the border of the dynasty, so no matter how much trouble there was in the dynasty, it wouldn't affect the West Desolate Province. Afterward, Lung Shiqi bade farewell to Yu Ruifeng and returned to Lan Chi City as quickly as possible. This trip took a total of 4 days. When he returned, the other 4 families that were in charge of the smuggling of refined iron in the cities had also been eliminated. Carts after carts of cultivation resources were delivered into Dark Thunder Manor's courtyard one after another, causing everyone's eyes to turn red with envy. However, these resources were all sealed in the treasury and were not distributed to everyone. They would be saved up for 9-leaf. When Lung Shiqi returned, Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian came looking for him with tired faces. Qiu Cheng didn't care about etiquette. He drank a large pot of tea and said, "Sir, you're back. We've been busy these past few days." They destroyed the Xinyang sect and several families. Although these people deserved it, the Dark Thunder Guards also had to go through a lot of procedures. These things have been done by Qiu Cheng all the time. These days, he almost didn't sleep. Xiao Qian, on the other hand, was responsible for sealing up resources, handing over missions, and managing the Dark Lightning Guards. They did have a lot of power in their hands, but they were exhausted. Lung Shiqi also knew that there were too few Dark Lightning envoys in his Dark Lightning manor. Only Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian were enough to keep him busy. Thus, he said, "Don't worry. I've already gotten the permission of the inspector. I can recruit 50 Dark Lightning Guards and 3 Dark Lightning envoys." Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian were both happy and sad at the same time. They were happy that there were people to share some of the responsibility and pressure, but at the same time, they also had to share some of the power. Lung Shiqi said meaningfully, "You're both veterans of Dark Thunder Manor in Mischi City. You'll have to put in more effort in the future." These words were to reassure them. Even if there were new Dark Lightning envoys in the future, the two of them would still be the most important. Xiao Qian and Xiao Qian were also slightly relieved. "You two have been very busy recently. I'll do the recruitment myself." Lung Shiqi directly took the responsibility for this matter, so the two of them naturally had nothing to say. From the next day onwards, Dark Thunder Manor began recruiting Dark Lightning Guards and Dark Lightning envoys. This news attracted a lot of attention. It wasn't because of anything else. Dark Thunder Manor had just recruited 30 Dark Lightning Guards a while ago. Now, they were recruiting again. Was the Dark Lightning Guard so short of people? However, this was the Dark Lightning Guard. Being able to enter the Dark Lightning Guard was equivalent to having an iron rice bowl, so it still attracted a lot of people. In particular, Lung Shiqi was in the limelight recently. Many young elites came because of his reputation. The originally deserted streets of Dark Thunder Manor became much more lively. Lung Shiqi also became busy. Being personally recruited by him as a supervisor, it was naturally very strict. 80% of the people were rejected by him. Even so, there were still a lot of people who flocked to him. In 4 to 5 days, he recruited 50 Dark Lightning Guards in the Spirit Transformation realm and 3 Dark Lightning Envoys in the Spirit Pulse realm. In fact, these people were all assassins from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Now, Lung Shiqi had 120 Dark Lightning Guards under him. Most of them were from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. 3 of the 5 Dark Lightning Envoys were also Bloodcloth assassins from the Bloodcloth Pavilion. It could be said that Dark Thunder Manor in Mischi City was completely under his control. On this day, Lung Shiqi called Qiu Cheng and Xiao Qian over. When they came in, they saw that there were already 3 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators sitting there. They knew that these 3 people were the 3 new Dark Lightning Envoys. "Sit, these 3 are the new Dark Lightning Envoys." Lung Shiqi raised his hand and said, "This is old Mr. Guan Feihong. He's in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse Realm." The old man sitting beside Lung Shiqi stood up and cupped his hands. He had a kind smile on his face. He looked gentle and amiable, giving people a good impression. "This old man is Guan Feihong. I'm already so old, but I'm still able to receive Lord Lu's favor and become a Dark Lightning Envoy. In the future, I'll have to ask the 2 of you to take care of me." When Xiao Qian and Qiu Cheng heard Lung Shiqi say that this person was in the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, their hearts tightened. However, seeing Guan Feihong like this, they thought that he was easy to get along with, so they said a few polite words. Actually, Guan Feihong had another name. Black striped blood, clothed assassin, heart soul, seeing through people's hearts, hooking their souls. Although he was old and could no longer use his full strength, Lung Shiqi had specially picked him because he liked his scheming and intelligence. Lung Shiqi thought that his shrewdness was not bad, but it would be better if he had a think tank by his side to give him advice. Moreover, he often went into closed-door cultivation. It was important to have someone outside who could take care of things. Following this, Lung Shiqi pointed at an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. He was the kind that could not be found in a crowd. This person stood up and smiled. This one is Qianming. I'm in the middle stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. This is my first time here. Please forgive me. Qianming was actually Thousand Face. Thousand Face's ability was too useful. Lung Shiqi had him change his identity and stay by his side. As for the last person, he was wearing tight black clothes. He hugged a thin sword and had a cold expression. He only said 3 words coldly. Qin Jianshan. Qin Jianshan's cold attitude made the others a bit unhappy, especially Qiu Cheng, who was already frowning. He was actually a famous black striped blood-clothed assassin in the Western Desolate Province, Ghost Sword. He had once assassinated a Spirit Aperture Realm expert with his late-stage Spirit Pulse Realm cultivation. Chapter 342. The 3 blood-clothed assassins that Lung Shiqi specially transferred from the blood-clothing pavilion all had their own areas of expertise. Guan Feihong was astute and could help him come up with plans. Gan Ming was ever-changing, and many things in the dark could be done through him. As for Qin Jianshan, he was a powerful fighting force. Under Lung Shiqi, whether it was Qiu Cheng, Qiao Qian, Guan Feihong, or Gan Ming, they all had their own strengths. But the only thing they lacked was an extremely strong fighting force. Now that he had Qin Jianshan, he finally made up for this and didn't need to do everything himself. This also saved him a lot of time to cultivate. After they got to know each other, Lung Shiqi said, "Send people to send invitations to all the families in the cities. Tell them that I will be hosting a banquet in 3 days at the Drunken Fragrance House." They looked at each other and guessed what Lung Shiqi was going to do. Soon after, the news spread to the 5 cities under his jurisdiction, and all the big clans heard about it. When they received the invitations, they were all secretly delighted. They were also very clear about the situation of the 6 great families in Mistchi City. With the support of Lung Shiqi, the 6 great families could be said to have made a lot of money, making people jealous. Now that this good thing had happened to them, they were naturally secretly happy. Moreover, they also knew that Lung Shiqi was a ruthless person. Since he took office, he had already destroyed several families. He even destroyed the dignified spirit cultivator sect, the profound Yang sect. Now, he was even more famous. They definitely couldn't afford to offend such a person, nor did they dare to. Thus, they hurriedly rushed to Mistchi City, afraid that they would be a step too late. And this news also spread to the supervisor in charge of the North region, Duan Shun. At this moment, Duan Shun was talking with another supervisor, Yu Zimo. Yu Zimo was in charge of supervising the area adjacent to Lung Shiqi. They were talking about Lung Shiqi. Master Duan, Lu Xingji destroyed the profound Yang sect and destroyed Zhu Lu country's conspiracy. Now, everyone in the North County knows the name Lu Xingji. Yu Zimo's words were full of deep meaning, and the meaning of his words was very obvious. The people in the North region only knew Lu Xingji of the Dark Thunder Guards, but not him. Moreover, Duan Shun didn't know that Lung Shiqi destroyed the profound Yang sect. He even found out later than Yu Ruifeng. Lung Shiqi actually did such a big thing, such a big contribution, without telling him, and did it himself. Duan Shun already had a huge prejudice against Lung Shiqi. As for the resources that Lung Shiqi gave him before, how could it be compared to the contribution of destroying the profound Yang sect? In fact, Duan Shun had a bad impression of Lung Shiqi from the beginning because he knew that Lung Shiqi had entered through the back door. Especially when Lung Shiqi became a supervisor as soon as he entered the Dark Thunder Guards, he was even more dissatisfied. However, this was Yu Ruifeng's order, so he had to follow it. Originally, he thought that Lung Shiqi wouldn't have a good time even if he became a supervisor, so he didn't pay too much attention to him. But later, Lung Shiqi suddenly sent a large number of resources to him and asked him to suppress the matter of smuggling. This let Duan Shun know that Lung Shiqi wasn't that simple. In the face of benefits, Duan Shun tacitly agreed. But this time, Lung Shiqi didn't say anything to him and directly took all the credit for himself. This made Duan Chun extremely angry. At this moment, Duan Chun's expression was extremely ugly. However, at this moment, a dark thunder guard ran in and said something in his ear. Bang! Duan Chun smashed the table beside him. He shouted, "How dare you? This Lu Xingji is really reckless and audacious." Yu Zimo was also stunned for a moment, but he was secretly happy. He asked tentatively, "Master Duan, what did that Lu Xingji do this time?" "Oof." Duan Chun snorted. "This person is insatiably greedy. He actually gathered all the patriarchs of the families under his jurisdiction and openly smuggled. Isn't a misty city enough for him to eat? Now he wants to eat 5 cities. Yu Zimo was also shocked. In fact, he also secretly did some smuggling business, but he definitely didn't dare to interfere. If Lung Shiqi succeeded, then he could just lie home and count money every day. This really made him jealous. Master Duan, Lu Xingji disregarded the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards and openly smuggled. This is a heinous crime. In my humble opinion, Master Duan can punish him directly. At this moment, Duan Chun suddenly calmed down. He thought carefully. Why was Lung Shiqi so bold? Who gave him such confidence? He faintly felt that there was something fishy. He said in a deep voice, "This is indeed a heinous crime. According to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards, he should be sentenced to life imprisonment at least. However, Lu Xingji is not stupid. On the contrary, he is very shrewd. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been willing to destroy the Xianyang sect. Since he dares to do this, he must have the confidence. No, I have to ask around first." Duan Chun was so cautious that Yu Zimo couldn't say anything more. However, he still felt indignant. Lung Shiqi was just a kid in the spiritual pulse realm. How could he be the supervisor? How could he get such a big credit for destroying the Xianyang sect? How dare he openly smuggle a large amount of resources? In comparison, Yu Zimo seemed to be a mediocre person. In his opinion, Lung Shiqi was someone who used connections to sneak into the Dark Thunder Guards. He even guessed that someone secretly helped him destroy the Xianyang sect. Otherwise, how could he, a spiritual pulse realm cultivator, kill Li Xianyang and Li Feizhou, 2 spiritual aperture realm cultivators? Yu Zimo secretly harbored hatred in his heart. As for the Lung Shiqi that they were discussing, the patriarchs of the clans in the 5 cities had already been sent away. This banquet went very smoothly. It went so smoothly that Lung Shiqi didn't say much. The whole time, it was Guan Feihong and the people of the 6 great clans who were talking. With the example of the 6 great clans, everyone happily agreed to Lung Shiqi's request. At this point, all the clans in the area under Lung Shiqi's jurisdiction had defected to him. His power in the 5 cities could be said to be unparalleled for a time. However, Lung Shiqi didn't care about this false reputation. After arranging everything, he handed over all the matters of the Dark Thunder Manor to the 5 Dark Thunder envoys. As for himself, he entered a state of seclusion. He fought with Li Xianyang and Li Feizhou, the 2 spiritual aperture realm cultivators. He gained a lot of insights, and even saw the path to breaking through to the spiritual aperture realm more clearly. However, he wasn't in a hurry to break through to the spiritual aperture realm because he still had important things to do before leaving. That was to open his spiritual pulse. He had several cultivation methods. Excluding the 10 that he had already opened, he still had 32 spiritual pulses that he could open. As long as he opened these spiritual pulses, his strength would be able to take another step forward. Chapter 343. For Lung Shiqi, who was at the 9th level of the Spirit Vein realm, opening a Spirit Vein was not a difficult task. He had many profound techniques, and the spirit energy in his body was a mutated gray spirit energy. As long as he controlled it carefully, opening a Spirit Vein was only a matter of time. Lung Shiqi could open a Spirit Vein almost every day. If this incredible speed was spread out, no one would believe it. It wasn't until a month later that he had actually opened up the remaining 32 spirit veins. Now, Lung Shiqi had opened up more than 20 spirit veins in his body. The spiritual meridian had a very strong effect on the spirit cultivator. Previously, the 10 spirit veins that Lung Shiqi had opened were all used to amplify spells and illusions. However, he didn't have many spells, and their power wasn't particularly strong. Hence, it didn't show. Now that he had opened up the indefinite truth and the ultimate golden, mysterious yang arts spirit veins, most of them were gathered in his arms and chest. Whether it was the foundation of his strength or his explosive power, it had greatly increased. In this month, although he did not deliberately cultivate spirit techniques, his strength had greatly improved. It was a pity that opening up spirit veins required full concentration, so he did not use the mind-splitting technique to separate a part of his consciousness to deduce spirit techniques. However, Lung Shiqi was still very satisfied. After a month of closed-door cultivation, he did not have any more spirit veins to open and was ready to go out and take a look. Calculating the time, in these 2 days, the various large families in the cities should have handed over their offerings. He should also go and replenish a large amount of spirit stones. Lung Shiqi had just pushed open the door when he saw Qiu Cheng and Guan Feihong walking in together. Moreover, they both had strange expressions on their faces. Guan Feihong cupped his hands and said, "Master, we are requesting to see you." "And what happened?" Lung Shiqi was a little surprised. If it was before, there were some matters in Dark Thunder Manor that required him to make decisions. But now, Dark Thunder Manor had sufficient manpower. Furthermore, with Qiu Cheng and Guan Feihong managing it together, it could be said that everything was in order. Now that the two of them came together, something troublesome must have happened. Qiu Cheng said, "Master, the City Lord's manor was robbed." Lung Shiqi frowned. "Stolen? Why should we, the Dark Thunder Guards, care about this kind of thing?" Qiu Cheng explained, "Not only the City Lord manor, but even the 6 great clans were robbed. The things they stole weren't very precious, but the thief was unusually arrogant. Every time he stole something, he would send a letter to the patriarch to tell him what he was going to steal. In the end, he always succeeded. The first was the Zhong family. The Zhong family's patriarch, Zhong Cheng, didn't take it seriously at first. Sir also knew that this person had always been cautious and had guards all over his residence. But the next day, he found out that his beloved jade had been stolen. From that day onwards, the 6 great clans were robbed one after another. Even the City Lord's mansion was robbed last night. Hearing this, Lung Shiqi was finally moved. The City Lord's mansion had Sun Gang, an expert at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. Apart from him, there were also hundreds of city guards. Even with such a lineup, the items could still be stolen. This showed that the thief's ability was not small. Guan Feihong took out a square handkerchief and continued. Every time this person stole something, he would leave this square handkerchief at the place where he left it. There are a few words written on it. "Sir, please take a look." Lung Shiqi took the square handkerchief. From the material in his hands, he could tell that it was an ordinary square handkerchief. However, there were 6 words written on it. "Don't look back on worldly affairs. Don't look back. Great thief, don't look back." Seeing these words, Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows. After he took over as the supervisor, in order to get rid of dissidents, he even used Imo Huishou's name to transfer Gong Sun Bing's trusted aides. He didn't expect Imo Huishou to actually appear in Misty Chi City. Guan Feihong said, "This great thief don't look back. According to my estimation, his cultivation is at least at the Spirit Aperture realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to steal from the City Lord's mansion without being discovered by Sun Gang." Lung Shiqi nodded. This was the same as what he had expected. However, Lung Shiqi still had some doubts. Even so, the job of catching the thief should belong to the city guards. Moreover, the City Lord's mansion was robbed. They should be contributing even more. Qiu Cheng and Guan Feihong looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Guan Fei Hong took out another piece of paper and said seriously, "This was accidentally found by a servant in the courtyard this morning." Lung Shiqi lowered his head to take a look. There was also a sentence written on it. "I would like to borrow the Dark Thunder Mansion's supervisory seal to take a look." Lung Shiqi frowned. Mo Huaishou actually had his eyes on him. The supervisory seal was the seal he used to exercise his authority as a supervisor. Mo Huaishou actually wanted to steal the supervisory seal? Unconsciously, a cold glint flashed across Lung Shiqi's eyes. At the same time, he understood why Qiu Cheng and Guan Fei Hong came to find him. Even the heavily guarded city lord's mansion had been robbed. Now that the supervisory seal was targeted, the two of them definitely had no confidence in solving it. "How many people are there in Dark Thunder Mansion now?" Lung Shiqi asked. Qiu Cheng said, "Sir, we've been busy recently. There are only about 40 people in the mansion. Do you want me to urgently transfer some people back?" Lung Shiqi's gaze was as sharp as a sword. He said coldly, "No need. 40 people are enough. Come closer." The two of them hesitated when they heard Lung Shiqi's words. "Just do it. If Mo Huaishou dares to come tonight, he won't be able to return." The two of them nodded and went to prepare according to Lung Shiqi's instructions. Meanwhile, Lung Shiqi walked to the meeting hall and began to arrange things. Soon it was nighttime. Everything in Dark Thunder Mansion was as usual. The only unusual thing was that a square box was placed on the table in the meeting hall. That box contained the supervisory seal. This action seemed to be purposely giving the supervisory seal to Mo Huaishou, but it looked more like a trap. In Dark Thunder Manor, a servant bowed slightly as he walked past the meeting hall with small steps. Soon, he turned into a corridor. That person's eyes immediately lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up. "TSK, there are 30 to 40 hidden sentries in all directions. There are even a few spirit pulse realm cultivators hiding in the meeting hall." "What era is it now? You still want to play such a lowly trick? Aren't you underestimating me too much?" I didn't say that I had to come tonight to retrieve the supervisory seal. I'll forgive you for a few days first." Immediately after, the figure of this servant quietly disappeared into the darkness. In the blink of an eye, that person directly appeared outside the walls of Dark Thunder Mansion. When he turned around, his servant's appearance actually changed into an elegant young master. He left with his hands behind his back. At the same time, a figure stood on top of the Misty Chi City's city tower. He was the city lord of Misty Chi City, Sun Gang. His gaze was fixed in the direction of Dark Thunder Mansion. He also wanted to know if Dark Thunder Mansion would be robbed tonight. Not long after the elegant young master left, someone blocked his path. It was Lung Shiqi. Chapter 344. When the elegant young master saw Lung Shiqi, he paused for a moment. However, he immediately calmed down and continued walking forward. "Don't look back on worldly affairs." Who knew that Lung Shiqi would say this? The elegant young master turned his head in surprise. This young master is rather elegant. It's a pity that it's already late. Otherwise, I would like to recite poems with you. Lung Shiqi smiled coldly. With a wave of his hand, several figures quickly swept past and surrounded the elegant young master. There were also 4 spirit pulse realm cultivators who stood beside him. Mo Huaishou, your disguise is indeed exquisite. However, there are many people who are good at it in the Dark Thunder Guards. Do you think that you can hide from the eyes of the Dark Thunder Guards with this little ability of yours? You shouldn't have targeted me in the first place." Lung Shiqi said indifferently. The elegant young master's gaze flickered. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "As expected of the Dark Thunder Guards, as expected of the supervisor. You guys actually saw through the flaw. The clumsy arrangement in the Dark Thunder Manor was intentional. It was to lure me out. That's pretty smart. However, so what? Do you think you can keep me here with just these few people? Or do you have the confidence to capture a spirit aperture realm cultivator?" Lung Shiqi's brows furrowed. With his strength and a few Dark Thunder Guards, He could indeed barely deal with a spirit aperture realm cultivator at the initial stage. However, being able to fight and being able to capture were two different things. However, just as Lung Shiqi furrowed his brows, Mo Huaisho's figure suddenly turned into a phantom and fled. It was as if the Dark Thunder Guards surrounding him didn't exist. They couldn't stop him at all. Oh no! Lung Shiqi knew that things weren't good. He hurriedly shouted, "Chase!" He immediately led everyone to chase after him. However, Mo Huaisho's speed was extremely fast. He was the fastest among all the people he had fought. After a while, Mo Huaisho turned into a small alley. He smiled proudly. You guys purposely lured me out. However, you didn't know that I was also trying to lure you out." Soon after, a faint black aura arose from his body. When the black aura dissipated, his figure disappeared again. Lung Shiqi quickly arrived with his men, but there was no one in sight. According to common sense, he should be frowning, but now there was a strange smile on his face. He took the bait. Qiu Cheng stepped forward. "Right now, only Lord and Qin Jinshan are in Dark Thunder Manor. Will there be any problems?" Lung Shiqi glanced at him and said, "Are you questioning His Excellency's strength?" Qiu Cheng's face stiffened, and he said with a slightly angry tone, I'm just worried about the safety of my lord." Lung Shiqi did not pay much attention to him. Instead, he turned around and left, leaving behind a sentence. "Then why don't you hurry back and help His Excellency?" Qiu Cheng felt a little uncomfortable. He knew that the Lung Shiqi in front of him was not Lung Shiqi, but Qianming. In Qiu Cheng's impression, Qianming was initially more respectful and modest. However, as he slowly familiarized himself with and gained some power, he gradually did not put Qiu Cheng in his eyes. However, Qianming was indeed very skilled. His disguising skills were unparalleled in Dark Thunder Manor. In order to capture Mo Huaisho tonight, he played a crucial role. Even though Qiu Cheng was a little dissatisfied with his attitude, he did not dare to cause trouble in case he messed up the plan. He secretly gritted his teeth and followed with his men. At this moment, in Dark Thunder Manor, Lung Shiqi hurriedly walked into the meeting hall. However, his footsteps stopped the moment he entered the hall. He said, "Come out. Mo Huaisho has already escaped." A person walked out from the shadows of the meeting hall. He hugged a thin sword. It was Ghost Sword Qin Jinshan. Qin Jinshan had always been a man of few words. He just stood there silently. Lung Shiqi asked, "Is there anything wrong with the supervisory seal?" Qin Jinshan shook his head slightly. Lung Shiqi walked forward and said, "It said that Mo Huaisho's methods are strange. It's better to confirm it." As he spoke, he picked up the box containing the supervisory seal as if he wanted to check it. However, the moment he picked up the box, something unexpected happened. He did not hear the sound of a long sword being unsheathed. A thin sword had already stabbed towards Lung Shiqi like a ghost. What a fast sword! Lung Shiqi did not expect Qin Jinshan to suddenly attack. The sword was very fast, so fast that he could not dodge it at all. With a wong sound, a huge amount of spiritual power surged out from Lung Shiqi's body and instantly formed a protective spiritual armor. Qin Jinshan's sword looked simple and unadorned, but it hid a terrifying power and killing intent. His sword actually pierced through the protective spiritual armor in an instant. However, the protective spiritual armor had at least bought half a breath of time. Lung Shiqi's body twisted like a snake and narrowly avoided the sword. Qin Jinshan's sword shook and a wave of sword chi with a deathly aura shot out and entered Lung Shiqi's body. Lung Shiqi tapped his feet on the ground and retreated several hundred feet away. He stared at Qin Jinshan in shock. Qin Jinshan's cultivation was only at the late stage of the Spirit Pulse realm, but his sword was abnormally terrifying. Not only did it easily pierce through his protective spiritual armor, the deathly sword chi was also corroding his flesh like maggots. Qin Jinshan said with a bit of sarcasm, "So my lord has already broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm." Lung Shiqi knew that he had already been exposed when he appeared here, but he did not know how he had been exposed. Everything that happened tonight seemed to be out of his control. At this moment, the ground under his feet suddenly made a caw-caw sound. The ground in the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor cracked, and rays of dazzling golden light shone out from the cracks. Immediately after, a golden sun broke through the ground, as if a sun had risen in the night sky. Rank 5 Spiritual Technique, Bright Sun Mystic Yang Palm. A figure rose up with the sun in his hand. There was a blood mark on his forehead. It was Lung Shiqi, the real Lung Shiqi. The sun was fierce, and everything was revealed. The other Lung Shiqi took off the disguise on her body and revealed an exquisite figure. However, this person's face was covered with a mask. This was Mo Huaisho. What was unexpected was that Mo Huaisho was actually a woman. Mo Huaisho would never have thought that Lung Shiqi had been hiding underground for a long time to find an opportunity to give her a fierce attack. Although Lung Shiqi was still at the 9th level of the Spirit Pulse realm, he had already opened up 42 Spirit Pulses. In addition, with the support of several profound techniques and mutated spiritual energy, his attack was not inferior to a Spirit Aperture Realm's attack. Mo Huaisho's palm continuously moved and shot out rays of green light. If one looked carefully, the green light was actually filled with small insects. Those small insects looked extremely weak, but each of them could actually swallow the light of the bright sun Mystic Yang Palm. In the blink of an eye, more than half of Lung Shiqi's palm energy was swallowed. Seeing this, Lung Shiqi's heart moved, and he said in surprise, "Gu Technique, you are from Zhulu country." Chapter 345. As Lung Shiqi had to make a trip to Zhu Road country soon, he took some time to look at the information regarding Zhu Road country and the 6 Western region countries. The Gu technique was a peculiar cultivation method unique to the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. But among the 6 countries of the Western region, Zhulu country was famous for its Gu techniques because there was a Gu god sect in Zhulu country that specialized in cultivating Gu techniques. This Gu god sect was even worshipped as the national religion in Zhu Road country. According to the division of power, it was considered a first-rate power. Therefore, when Lung Shiqi saw Mo Huaisho use the Gu technique, his first reaction was that she was from Zhu Road country. Lung Shiqi roared, "The dynasty strictly forbids spirit cultivators above the Spirit Aperture realm from the 6 Western region countries to enter. Zhu Road country sure has guts. Do you really think there's no one in our dynasty? Do you really think there's no one in the Dark Thunder Guards?" At this moment, he really had the intention to kill. No matter what Mo Huaisho's motive was for coming to Lanqi City, and no matter how she sneaked in, she had indeed violated the Thunder Flame dynasty's ban. As long as he killed her, he could pin the crime of being a spy, which would be a great contribution. Of course, it would be best if he could capture her alive. However, Lung Shiqi still had some self-awareness. With just him and Qin Jianshun, they did have a chance to kill Mo Huaisho, but it was impossible to capture her alive. Mo Huaisho was also helpless. She was sneak attacked by Lung Shiqi's glorious sun, mysterious sun palm, and had no choice but to use the spirit-devouring Gu to defend. The spirit-devouring Gu could devour a large amount of spiritual energy in a short period of time and was the nemesis of various spiritual techniques. However, there was a limit to the amount of spiritual energy that each spirit-devouring Gu could withstand. Lung Shiqi's glorious sun, mysterious sun palm, was at the Great Circle realm. When he used it, it was extremely powerful and was not weaker than the initial stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. One by one, the spirit-devouring Gu exploded from the huge amount of spiritual energy, but the glorious sun was also quickly fading. Mo Huaisho's heart ached. The spirit-devouring Gu was extremely difficult to cultivate. It could be said that each one was extremely precious, but in the blink of an eye, dozens of them died. What gave her a headache was that she had exposed her identity because of this. From now on, it would be difficult for her to move around the Western Desolate Province. Unbeknownst to her, A pitch-black sword ray quietly pierced towards her. The speed of the sword ray was unimaginably fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived before her. It was Qin Jinshan. Mo Huaisho coldly snorted. Two balls of dark green light condensed in her hands, which rippled with dense poisonous gas. She clapped her hands together, and two balls of green light shot out toward Qin Jinshan and Lung Shiqi respectively. Lung Shiqi shouted, "Retreat!" Qin Jinshan's sword attack came to a halt, and he was forced to retreat. Immediately after, two huge explosions resounded in the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor. It could be heard clearly even from miles away. Qian Ming, Qiu Cheng, and the other 3 Dark Lightning envoys were on their way here. They clearly felt the aura of the explosion. Their bodies paused for a moment as they revealed looks of shock. Then, they sped up even faster. The green light in the courtyard was tyrannical. Violent spiritual energy blasted out, overturning all the houses and floor tiles in the courtyard. From the ashes of the huge explosion, a figure wearing demonic armor walked out. Lung Shiqi had activated the demonic beast blood rune armor at the crucial moment. Even so, cracks began to appear on the armor. It was obvious how terrifying the explosion was. As for Qin Jinshan, although he had retreated in time, the power of the explosion was too great. At this moment, the skin and flesh on his back were rolled up, and there was a faint green light corroding his flesh. Lung Shiqi's eyes flashed with a shocking, murderous intent. However, when he lifted his foot, he realized that he had stepped on something that was unusually sticky. He lowered his head and saw that the ground was actually covered with spider webs. These spider webs were not very tough, but they were very sticky, making it difficult for people to move. And that Mo Huaisho was long gone. Lung Shiqi frowned. He had put in a lot of effort to set up this trap tonight. Mo Huaisho's disguise was indeed brilliant, and he was not inferior to Thousand Face. However, in Lung Shiqi's eyes, nothing could be hidden. No matter how much you change your appearance and voice, you could not change the spiritual energy in your body. Lung Shiqi had long memorized the spiritual energy of everyone in Dark Thunder Manor. The moment Mo Huaisho entered Dark Thunder Manor, he already knew. The reason why he did not act rashly was that he also realized that Mo Huaisho had a powerful movement spiritual technique that was similar to teleportation. That was why he created a fake Lung Shiqi show. However, now that he knew that Mo Huaisho was most likely from Zhu Lu country, destroyed Dark Thunder Manor's courtyard, and injured his subordinates, his heart was filled with murderous intent. At this moment, he heard footsteps. It was Guan Feihong and the rest who had returned. Lung Shiqi removed his demonic beast blood rune armor. Guan Feihong ran to the front and asked anxiously, "Sir, are you okay?" Lung Shiqi shook his head and said, "I'm fine." Qin Jinshan, on the other hand, suffered heavy injuries. Quickly take him away for treatment. Use the best resources.